Naruto, Tsunade, Kakashi and Gaara after the fight with I Otsutsuki were sucked to another dimension with unexpected company to read the life of Naruto the Caterpillar. So without a further ado, let's start. The One Piece treasure is actually the friends we made along the way, Naruto. Oliver said sagely as he stroked his beard. I swear I'll go back in time to prevent his birth if he does that. Barry glared at the man. And I'll do the same to you if I find out you have anything to do with it ending that way. Oliver chuckled nervously as he waved his hands. Come on man, it's not that bad. Think of how Dinah would feel if I were to disappear. Considering you were never born, it's safe to say I wouldn't even know you. Dinah shrugged nonchalantly. Oliver gave her a betrayed look. Why? The One Piece treasure is actually the friends we made along the way, Naruto. Oliver said sagely as he stroked his beard. I swear I'll go back in time to prevent his birth if he does that. Barry glared at the man. And I'll do the same to you if I find out you have anything to do with it ending that way. Oliver chuckled nervously as he waved his hands. Come on man, it's not that bad. Think of how Dinah would feel if I were to disappear. Considering you were never born, it's safe to say I wouldn't even know you. Dinah shrugged nonchalantly before smiling at his betrayed look. Besides, Barry would never do that. Yet, he wouldn't. Oliver assured himself. But then again, nobody would have a way of knowing if he does, considering Oliver Queen would have never even existed if he kept you from being born. Naruto shrugged. But hey, that's just my opinion. I don't know him as well as you. Always trying to keep people on their toes, huh? Barry said dryly, noticing the slightly afraid look the archer sent him. I'm just helping him see things from a different perspective. Naruto smiled innocently. That I'd be able to get away with murdering my friend. It's not killing if they were never even conceived to begin with. It's the same logic of not being able to rape the willing. There's still statutory rape. Dinah pointed out. Your people rape statues? Naruto asked incredulously. Barry took a moment to process what he heard. What? No. Statutory rape is when you get nasty with someone below the age of consent, which is usually 18 or 16 years. Huh? Naruto nodded absently. Don't tell me that's not a crime in your world. Barry noticed the boy's look. Naruto squinted and thought. Well, there's too young, but there isn't not old enough. Do you people really have so few laws? Barry frowned. Their society's built from warfare, Barry. I don't think law and order is their main concern, right Naruto? Oliver said. That makes us sound like barbarians, but yes. Naruto reluctantly nodded. Hey, I didn't mean to insult you or anything. No, it's fine. Naruto cut him off. They spent the next few moments in silence before Oliver broke it. So when are we going to get to reading? I want to see how we fare against those Gordanians. I don't know either. Naruto glanced at Kara, who held the book in her hand. He didn't know what she was saying to Clark, but knowing the man, he was probably talking with her about asking someone to whip out his dick. Who said something like that out loud? I didn't think you'd be that prude, Kara. His penis, really? Diana asked the girl, much to her cousin's dismay. It was just a joke, damn it. Kara huffed. I don't think Clark got that. Kara highly doubted he had. She'd spent the first few minutes after the last chapter was over listening to him rant about the dangers of premarital sex and pornography. It was a joke made in bad taste. Clark defended himself. You don't shout stuff like that out for the world to hear. What, so it's better if I whispered show us your dick instead? Kara folded her arms. Language. Diana knew Clark was raised to be as righteous a person could be without actually being a saint, but even then, she couldn't help feeling shocked by that. Language? Did he think Kara was a child? Kara scowled. Your rebuking means nothing. I've heard the things you've said about Lois Lane. Most occupants of the room turned to look at Clark, who sported a flushed face. I don't say anything about her, it's disrespectful. He sputtered. So that time I heard you say what an S, that was just me imagining things. Kara smirked triumphantly. An awkward silence filled the room as everyone processed what they'd heard. Naruto, who'd been listening intently, deflated. Wait, that's it. Kara blinked. What? Oliver agreed. Yet, I was expecting him to say something more, down bad. Down bad. Kakashi frowned. Something horny, or rather, hornier than that, as Hal told the silver-haired man, who grinned slightly. Clark looked like he wanted to fly away. I can't believe you'd expose me like that. If it makes you feel better, we've all said hornier things than what an S. Oliver comforted the man before remembering Diana, Batman and Manhunter. Well, many of us. Diana nodded, remembering Oliver's first attempt at a pickup line. Who remade MLK's speech into one about glazing a person's behind. I'm nothing like the rest of you lot. I've never said anything like that in my life. Kara's face stretched out in a wide grin that shrunk when Diana coughed into her hand. Sure you aren't. Tsunade muttered. If the girl was anything like Naruto and Kakashi, she probably either hid her porn in the pockets of her clothes that she kept in her closet or rolled them up to disguise them as scrolls. Yet, I totally believe you. Oliver nodded sarcastically. It has nothing to do with the fact that your parents would probably wash your mouth with soap if they caught you saying foul language. Poor kid. Naruto snickered. Do females even say horny stuff? Barry muttered. My voice isn't deep, but my throat is. Tsunade grinned. Clark turned beet red as Barry frowned confusedly. What does your voice have to do, yo? Kakashi shifted awkwardly in his seat. Sure, Lady Tsunade was an extremely beautiful woman, but it still felt weird to hear that from someone like her who also happened to be a cage. Maybe the legendary sucker doesn't just mean she's bad at gambling. I could have gone my whole life without hearing that. Naruto grimaced. Hearing a pickup line like that from someone he considered a mother-grandmother figure felt nothing but unpleasant. I know how that feels. Batman spoke for the first time since the last chapter. He'd never gotten over the time he caught Alfred having phone sex. I hope you're not claustrophobic, 'cause there's a tight place I need you to fit in. Kara said out of the blue. Oh my god. Clark moaned ashamedly. Where had he gone wrong? Naruto tried to wave off the mental image her words caused. That was not all that bad. Yet, a little cheesy, but does a good job with the mental imagery. Oliver nodded before quickly turning to Dinah. I'm not thinking about her. Dinah raised an eyebrow amusedly. It's not me you should be worried about. She pointed at Clark, who was glaring daggers at the archer. He gulped. In hindsight, revealing that he imagined fucking the cousin of a man who could turn his brain to a crisp with a glare wasn't a good idea. Now that that's over, Clark got cut off by Tsunade. Hold on, I got another one. She cleared her throat. I'm good at written tests, but oral is my specialty. Kara frowned. The only thing I want between us is latex. Dinah shook his head. She didn't know why she let this continue, but whatever. Too forward. Kara blinked. I'd like you much better if you were naked. Tsunade squeezed his face. Tu rapperoi. Can't rape the willing. Naruto muttered under his breath. His words didn't escape Clark's hearing though. The difference between me and a Moskwa. I've heard so many renditions of that pickup line, I die inside every time I hear it. Oliver rolled his eyes. How about this one then? Horizontal ellipsis. Anka would have a field day if she was here, wouldn't she? Tsunade asked Kakashi as she watched the girl go through increasingly crude pickup lines, much to her cousin's embarrassment. Kakashi chuckled. I imagine she'd just be annoyed at having missed her evening tea ceremony for this. Evening tea? Tsunade blinked. The thought of the slightly unhinged woman sitting in her home to boil tea was almost comic. Kakashi nodded. It's been a hobby of hers for a few years now. I see. Tsunade still couldn't believe it. Horizontal ellipsis. Is it raining outside or am I just? Hate to be that guy, but am I the only one eager to see us fight the Gordanians? Hal cut her short. Honestly, it was impressive how many lines she knew, but he was tired of listening to them. Don't be a party pooper, Hal! Barry muttered absently. All the lines Kara had said, but he hadn't been able to get over Tsunade's own. The look the woman had sent him while she said it still got him speechless. Can't believe I'm saying this, but I kinda wish I wasn't married. He's right though. We should keep reading. Diana said. She'd never say it, but she felt a little envious of the others. Even Dinah dropped a few hard ones, but she couldn't do anything but watch. Naruto, who felt the envy wafting off the Amazon, subtly slithered to her side and bumped her hip with his. You know, you don't need lines when you look like you do. Really? She perked up slightly. He nodded. If you were a random stranger and told me to follow you, I'd follow first and ask myself why last. She raised an eyebrow. That's not very cautious. You're worth the risk. He smiled at the woman, who smiled back, a little flustered. Smooth. Hal muttered to Batman, who ignored him. Carol rolled her eyes at them before speaking a little too loudly. Hal's right, we should get to reading now. Diana cleared her throat, a little annoyed. Of course, let's. Naruto sighed. Sure, it's about time anyways. Barry nudged her with a grin as they all gathered and took their seats when he saw her staring intently at Diana, who sat closer to Naruto than she did before, interrupting their moment to start reading. Pretty much. I once turned off the comments in a live stream with Barbara because I saw two people flirting with each other. If I can't find love, no one can. Gaara replied smoothly. I don't think even Thawne's that bad. Barry said. Thawne was ready to die just so people could hate you. He's a lot pettier than that. Batman chimed in. The speedster grimaced. On a second thought, he is. Now that I think of it, you kind of have the prettiest rogue gallery I've seen in a while. Oliver mused. Batman's got the smartest, Clark and Diana have the strongest, most of us have in-betweeners, but yours are usually just really, really petty. Rogue gallery? Naruto asked. A bunch of villains who kind of have it out for just one of us. Gaara explained before Diana could speak, earning a blank look from the Amazon. That makes it sound like they're recurring enemies. Kakashi said. They are. It's kind of a repeating loop with them and us. We fight, toss them in jail, they get out and fight us again. Batman's got the Joker, Poison Ivy, Bane, Ra's al Ghul, I have Prometheus, Onomatopoeia and a bunch of others. Clark's got Lex Luthor, Metallo and Diana's got Cheetah, Dr. Psycho, Oliver trailed off. Come to think of it, you don't have all that many villains, Diana looked away awkwardly. Neither do Hawkman and Hawkgirl, and they're pretty much the only three of us who still fight with medieval weaponry. Hal narrowed his eyes at the woman. Maybe that's why you don't have many villains? Maybe it's because they're all dead. I think it's best we start reading. Gaara said. The idea of having to fight the same set of enemies repeatedly sounded foolish in his ears. What was the point in apprehending a criminal they knew would try to and would most likely escape to confront them again? He imagined having to fight Dieter over and over again and shuddered. Seriously now, let's get started. Clark said, quieting everyone. Seeing nobody was about to talk anymore, Gaara opened the book and the screen came down as she began to read. Chapter 8, Gordanians. Gordanians? Why are they here? The words came out of Hawkgirl's mouth. Originally, she was more than ready to start brawling against the masked alien mercenary, but the moment the immense hologram of the Gordanian ship's commander appeared in the sky, she immediately changed her mind. She was not the only one either. Green Lantern was of the same mind as well. Though the Gordanian Intergalactic Empire was from outside the 3,600 space sectors regulated by the Green Lantern Corps, most of the Green Lanterns were aware of their evil deeds. I'm surprised Hawkgirl didn't fly into a rage and charge at them. Hal said. Why would she? Tsunade asked. Thagnarians and Gordanians have been at constant war for centuries now. It's on sight with those two. On sight. Oliver snickered. Believe me, if you think Hawkgirl's bad, you should see the typical Thagnarian in space. They drill like they're seeing red. We have to get you away from rap music. Dinah shook her head disappointedly. With these two pistols, I ain't shooting at your legs. Oliver grinned. Didn't the guy who said the get killed? Barry asked. Yeah, nasty stuff, but hey, he was dissing both the dead and the living. Am I the only one who finds it weird that rappers drop like flies these days? Hal sighed. Less than 3 months apart, we lost two. Naruto shook his head. Hopefully, rap in the elemental nations wouldn't get that dangerous. The world was bad enough without people dying for their lyrics. Superman, we are focusing on the wrong guy. Green Lantern transmitted through his earpiece. He was currently flying very high up in the air, in front of the Gordanian ship together with Martian Manhunter and Wonder Woman. I've heard about the Gordanians before. They're... Hawkgirl cut him in the middle and continued his words. An intergalactic empire hell-bent on conquering and enslaving the galaxy. My people, the Thanagarians, have been at war against them for generations. They're the worst scum of the universe, pieces of trash that conquer planets and sell their inhabitants as slaves. Makes you wonder why Starfire's parents sold her off and still planned a double-cross. Kakashi spoke. Word's going to eventually get out that Starfire's back home, and when it does, it won't be difficult for the Gordanians to put 2 and 2 together and double back to Tamarin. Her voice was quivering with anger. The hate in her voice could not be faked. Her hatred for Gordanians had been ingrained in her since she was a frail child. They were her race's archenemy. It did not take a genius to realize that the alien girl was an escaped slave from one of the worlds enslaved by the Gordanians. They also reached the conclusion that the mercenary had no intention to harm her, given that he had not attacked her and had only put her to sleep. At least they didn't get to us when we were too busy fighting an innocent man. Oliver joked tentatively. Right. Clark chuckled half-heartedly. I still think you're wrong for trying to keep me from taking her. Naruto joined in. We couldn't let you just do that, Naruto. Clark sighed. You're stopping an alien trespasser from taking another alien trespasser just because she looks like the victim. For all you know, she could have been a terrorist who managed to bust out of jail and I was a law enforcement agent sent to bring her back. Naruto argued. Is that how you guys really do, just butting into people's businesses just because one looks like the bad guy? Clark looked sheepish at that. I might have stopped a guy from entering his own car because he locked his keys inside and tried opening it with a wire. Naruto shook his head disappointedly. I can't wait for the day you help out a bad person and only realize it when they've succeeded and it's too late to stop them. Hopefully, it'll never arrive. Clark chuckled awkwardly. Didn't you disable those nukes? Hopefully, it'll never arrive. Clark sent Barry a pointed look as he laid emphasis on hopefully. The speedster got the message and kept quiet. Nevertheless, Naruto had no way of knowing what the Justice League was talking about amongst themselves. When Superman got within a 25 feet distance from him, he thought that they were finally going to attack him. I've warned you, boy. I gave you a chance to back away. You only have yourself to blame. He spoke coldly. Wait, Superman began to say. He wanted to momentarily cease their hostilities in order to deal with the Gordanians' attack first, but his change of heart had come a little too late. The masked mercenary spread his feet in a wider stance and his legs bent slightly from the knees. Then, he slapped his hands together like in prayer and his fur-collared black cloak began to float and billow despite the absence of any wind, revealing the combat suit he was wearing underneath. A terrible aura started to ooze out of his body and a great feeling of danger assaulted Superman's sharp senses. But he was left with no room to react at all before he found himself losing his equilibrium and getting slammed against the ground. The League member stared wide-eyed at the screen. He floored Superman. The Superman. What the hell? Oliver whispered. Naruto sighed, disappointed in his other self. Even if you're going to attack, why talk first? You're not pissed that he's jumping the gun? Barry asked. I mean, he could have waited. Reaction's infinitely riskier than action. Batman said. But he'd have been more efficient if he'd spent that time moving rather than talking. Exactly. Naruto clapped his hands. So we're all just going to ignore that he made Clark fall over. Hal nearly shouted. I know he's nearly invulnerable, but is making him fall really that big a deal? Naruto asked. It's a hell of a deal, man. Barry cried. He'd seen Clark tank attacks with more power than a Zarbomb and remain standing. Seeing someone make the man fall without even touching him was nothing less than shocking. Clark stared at the screen in shock. He didn't consider himself a prideful man, but he knew his strengths well enough to say nothing but the most powerful of attacks could send him to the ground, so he was more than a little shocked to see himself in his current state. Batman looked at Naruto a little cautiously. Sure, his other self had over a century of experience and development, but how far exactly was the difference between their powers respectively? For all he knew, this Naruto could do the same thing. He initially hadn't considered the boy a huge threat, but anyone capable of toppling Superman was instantly taken to the highest level he had. He was not the only one. On a radius of 600 feet around the praying Naruto, all living beings fell flat on their face against the ground. Only a few moments later, the nearly 100 Gordanians that had been flying in the air before were smashed against the ground too, cracking the streets with their bodies and splattering the surrounding cars and buildings with their blood. The League members, save for Batman, Diana and Jean, grimaced at the sight of the extraterrestrial slavers popping like balloons as they impacted the ground and spraying blood and organs everywhere. I think I'm going to throw up. Barry looked away from the screen. This was worse than the scene with Vandal Savage. Fortunately, there were no civilians around as they had evacuated the entire districts from the moment that Coriander had started to crazily blow up everything around her. But the ones present at the scene, the Gordanians, the Justice League and the 4 local heroes of Jump City, were not as lucky. Hal got a little worried. If whatever he's doing could put Superman on the floor, how do you think it's going to be for the others? As that dawned on them, everyone got tense at the realization that they might be watching themselves die at the mercenaries' hands. Naruto shook his head. You guys wouldn't be here if your others were going to die just 8 chapters into the book. You'll live, I hope? That comforted them a bit. Barry nodded nervously. Yeah, we hope so too. What is this? Flash said as he tried to push against the ground with his hands, but he fell back with a thud that almost knocked him out cold. He was finding it hard to even breathe. An invisible force was pulling at his internal organs and his blood was churning. Hawkgirl was similarly flat against the rooftop of a building. Her superior Thanagarian constitution made her having it easier than Flash, but she could still not move even an inch from where she stood. As for Batman, he was on the brink of death, barely holding onto his consciousness. This time, even Batman grimaced. Yet another reminder that he was merely human, but he was more worried about Robin than the others. He'd trained himself to the peak condition an adult human could achieve without enhancements in the form of drugs or powers, but Dick was still just a boy. He didn't want to watch his son figure die over a misunderstanding he had little to no part in. That was no way for his journey to end. It was gravity. Clark blinked. That's not possible. I can ignore gravity. It's how I fly. You can ignore 1G, Clark. Hal reminded the man. In 2G planets, you're barely able to go sonic. On 3G planets, you're lucky to hover, and on 4G planets, you're landlocked. So Naruto multiplied the gravitational force he exerted enough to force me to the ground. Clark frowned. Yet. Hal nodded. The fact that the others weren't bloody smears on the ground yet was a testament to their unnatural durability. With a regular human, they'd be flattened so badly, even the blood would be heavily compressed. Naruto, in spite of his discomfort at the sight of the dying heroes, couldn't help being amazed by his other self. Being able to manipulate a gravitational field around oneself was something even Kaguya hadn't been able to do. Sure, it was infinitely cooler to create and transport them to a dimension where she could freely manipulate its gravity, but still, that was more than anyone other than her had ever shown themselves to be capable of. Kakashi sighed. I swear he gets something new every time I blink. With Naruto as the center of a circle of 600 in diameter, Earth's gravity was multiplied several times over. It was the peak of mastery that Naruto had reached in the Earth release in the 6-path Sage Mode. 6-path Sage Mode. Gaara paused to ask. Sure, she knew pretty much all about it, but it'd be more than a little suspicious if she didn't at least act curious. It's a little difficult to explain. Think of Sage Mode, but Naruto tilted his head from side to side as he tried to think of a proper comparison. It's like Sage Mode, but next level. Like some form of ascendance. Gaara asked. Yeah. Naruto said. It's basically becoming one with everything. Not just nature, it's universal, you know. You're connecting with everything. The world basically just takes you as part of it, if you get me, not inside it, part of it. I can even fly in that state. I don't get it. Gaara said. Think of the world like an ocean. Normally, you're pretty much a normal person, still capable of drowning and all. In Sage Mode, you become a fish. In 6-path Sage Mode, you become water. I think I do now. I suppose at the stage your other self is at, it's more than being able to connect, he's able to manipulate everything. Kakashi noted. But Earth. Dust Release is the supposed pinnacle of mastery of Earth Release, and the only two people who used it were capable of ignoring gravity. Tsunade said. It makes sense that they'd probably be able to manipulate it too, but they probably never thought of that. Anoki made my sand lighter during the war. Gaara said. Tsunade blinked. Huh? I guess he did then. Everything? Like commanding animals to do your bidding and plants to grow faster. Hal joked. Considering my other self can multiply and limit the area where gravity is multiplied, I think that's probably child's play for him. Naruto said. Not to mention he can probably use that to summon a tsunami. Or shatter a tectonic plate and cause an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, or a tsunami too. Gaara chimed in, causing Oliver to pale. Or raise a dust cloud thick enough to suffocate people. Barry joined in. Considering he uses wind, he'd be able to make it circulate. So we're all just casually talking about the different ways a sage can commit genocide. Dinah sniffed. Yep. What's a tectonic plate? Naruto asked Diana, who shrugged. Seriously though, if you can manipulate the fundamental parts of existence because you're connected to everything, you'd be pretty much omnipotent. Hal said. Well, I don't feel omnipotent. Naruto chuckled. Besides, I doubt it's that broken. Even the Rakuto Sennin couldn't do that. But then again, he could tether his soul to the world long after his death and still keep his own chakra to gift unto you and the Uchiha. Kurama, who recently woke up, reminded the boy. That's true. Naruto thought. Makes you wonder all the things he could really do. Perhaps death is the next step? Kurama offered. There's a saying that death is the beginning of existence on a higher plane. Well, I'm not in a hurry to find out. Naruto shrugged, drawing Diana's attention. Is something the matter? The Amazon asked. No, I was talking with Kirima about something. Naruto waved her off. So you think you just haven't reached that level of sagehood where you'd be pretty much God? Oliver teased the boy. You think God was also a sage who just ascended and decided to make another universe? Barry mused. You think there are probably other beings like him just watching us from their own plane beyond ours, like fishes in a fishbowl? I don't know and I don't care. Oliver said quickly. He didn't want to have to deal with Barry's occasional existential questions. Most of them got way too deep for him to answer. But isn't sage mode just you absorbing nature energy? Gaara asked the blonde. You think you could take in cosmic energy? I hope not. Clark muttered. What's that? Naruto frowned. It's kind of hard to explain. Think of nature energy, but in space, and it's made by the celestial bodies. Stars, suns, storms, pretty much every energy joining together to form one kind. Gaara explained. It's what the new gods use. Like that dark side guy. Yet. Naruto rubbed his chin. Theoretically, it's not about taking it in, it's handling it. Space is infinite, yet. She nodded. Meaning there's an infinite amount of energy. You can't handle infinite. The issue with sage mode for cosmic energy is that controlling mature energy is usually just incorporating and balancing the energy in your own body and expelling the excess. Naruto explained. If cosmic energy is as infinite and powerful as you say it is, I'd have to find a different method to avoid taking in slightly excess, otherwise I'd pop like a balloon. I probably wouldn't be able to expel cosmic energy without more rushing in than I can take. He rubbed his chin in thought. Gaara grimaced at the thought of the blonde going out like a miniature supernova. On second thought, I think it's best if you stick to the usual. But if I can achieve that, I'd pretty much become a god. Naruto rubbed his hands at the thought. Yet, a new god. Gaara nodded. Please keep reading before Naruto gets ideas. Tsunade rubbed her forehead. The last thing she wanted was Naruto flying off to space and dying because he wanted to test out something. Too late. Tonri better be ready for me cause I'm going back to space. Every living being in that area was flat on their belly or back, struggling to cope against the force that threatened to end their lives. The Tamaringan princess, Robin and Beast Boy had been shaken out of their Genjutsu-induced sleep, but they were similarly helpless, especially Robin, who was in the same situation as his former mentor. The only one able to raise up from the ground was Superman. His immense strength as a Kryptonian was clearly living up to its fame. If this goes on, everyone will die. We were in the wrong. Please stop. Superman said, his breathing erratic. The nearly 100 armed Gordanians that had flown down to Earth were all dead already, their smashed and bloodied corpses creating a macabre paysage. The cloaked girl, Raven, had encased herself in a sphere of pure darkness and was probably still fine as she sat on the ground. Beast Boy had turned himself into a tiny flea to decrease the effect of gravity on his body as much as possible, and Hawk Girl was in no immediate danger either, just immobilized. But Flash and Cyborg were starting to have serious difficulties while Batman and Robin were on the verge of dying. Magic. Clark and Gaara sighed at the sight of the cloaked girl looking perfectly fine. If I had a nickel for every time I got sucked into a magician's hat, I'd have 2, which isn't much, but it's still weird that it happened twice. Oliver said. It's like command prompt, but in real life. Barry grumbled. Batman nodded. He rarely fought magic users, but each time he did, it was extremely difficult. Though he was very annoyed at the Earthlings' nosiness, Naruto had never intended to kill them. That's why he had chosen to immobilize them instead of throwing any deadly techniques at them. Therefore, when he heard Superman's offering of peace, his hands that were stuck to each other in a prayer parted. Like a miracle, the terrible pulling force stopped. Although the Justice League and the heroes of Jump City were now free to move again, nobody dared to resume their previous hostility. But their collective relief was almost palpable. However, when they thought that it was finally over, a haze of red and gold light began to pour out of Naruto's body. From his legs to his waist and up to his chest before finally enveloping his head too, almost like a cocoon. Bathed in golden crimson red light, he appeared like a miniature sun in the darkness of the night. The fuck is that? Oliver yelled. 6-path sage mode. Naruto smiled smugly. Few things felt as good as shocking the hell out of people when they saw that. And you can do that too. Clark gaped at the blonde. He imagined 6-path sage mode to be different things, but the boy becoming a miniature sun wasn't one of them. Naruto grinned. I think it's better to just show you. You ready, Kirima? I don't see why you're adamant on showing them, but yes. The occupants of the room were forced to shut their eyes as Naruto exploded in a burst of light with a loud bang. What followed next was a surge of power that made even the non-sensitive people's hair stand on end. If you're done disturbing me to massage your ego, I'd like to sleep now. Don't wake me up. Clark was the first person to regain his vision, and when he saw the boy, he found himself dumbstruck. Wow! While she wasn't as surprised, Diana was no less taken by the sight. It awfully reminded her of the few times she'd seen a god's divine form up close. Beautiful. I've seen a lot of shit, but that's a new one. Oliver whistled. Even his clothes changed. Naruto fanned himself smugly with his hand. Yet, most people have that reaction. He blinked when he felt Kara rub his arm through his clothes. What are you doing? The clothes actually changed. Kara muttered to herself as she continued to examine him, not noticing his growing embarrassment at being all but groped. And it's not actually fire. Of course not, it's just the excess power being expelled from my body. Yet, Kara nodded back, not taking her arms off him. Naruto humored her for a few moments before the amusement wore off. Okay, I think that's enough. As quickly as it had appeared, the shroud disappeared. Naruto ignored the girl's disappointed look in favor of turning to Barry. He liked being admired, not felt up, regardless of how hot the culprit was. You've never entered Six Paths mode that way before. Kakashi muttered. Yet, I wanted to give them a show. Naruto smiled smugly. Kirama. Yup. Of course. Kakashi sighed. If I didn't know better, I'd call that nuclear fusion. Barry said. Wally would though. But then again, he'd say anything that doesn't involve admitting the supernatural is real. Oliver mocked the speedster's protege. Come on, man. Again? Barry groaned. Can't help it. Nevertheless, that's something. Clark spoke. Naruto deflated slightly. Save for Oliver, their reactions were mostly underwhelming. Sure, they'd probably seen crazier things than that, but still. But don't let any of this distract us from the main thing. Oliver started. Savior Naruto has a final form. You know, you'd probably get a religion formed in your name if you bust that out on Earth. Barry agreed. Naruto rolled his eyes. He didn't have a good experience with religious people. The entire process took only 1 second, but to the onlookers, it felt as though it was much longer. Then, the cocoon of light blasted outwards and a tremendous aura of power flooded the entire sky, and not only. At that moment, regardless of what place on the planet they were, the magic users highly attuned to the flow of magic sensed the disturbance. Inside a high-class restaurant in London, UK, a blonde man was having dinner with a very wealthy-looking man. He was in the process of promoting a brand new sleeping pill, self-created pills charmed to produce a magically induced sleep, when he suddenly jumped up to his feet, almost flipping the table and greatly startling his dining partner and potential customer. Isn't that Constantine? Clark narrowed his eyes at the man on the screen. Batman nodded as he rubbed his forehead. Constantine. Kara asked her cousin. Magician, con artist, and everything in between, good and bad. Batman said. Nothing good comes out of most things he's involved in. Sounds like a piece of work. Kakashi chuckled. You wouldn't really understand without meeting him. Batman replied. If he had his own way, he would go his entire lifetime without even hearing of the man. In a lone tower outside of Salem, in Massachusetts, a grizzled-haired man was having breakfast with his wife when he suddenly shivered and spilled the cup of coffee he had been drinking. Hey, that's Dr. Fate. Yes, Barry, we know. I thought Eisner was dead though. Dinah frowned. She died last year, this probably happened before then. Oliver reasoned. In Napoli, Italy, a beautiful illusionist botched a magic trick that she was performing on the stage when she momentarily lost her focus, and instead of taking a rabbit out of her magic hat, she took out a snake, making the entire audience cry out in panic. Batman smirked. Zatanna had given him a nasty scare like that once too. When he'd been apprenticed to her father, she had tried to chase him away by reanimating a stuffed snake to scare him. She'd gone a little too far with her magic and revived it as a living snake. Naruto ignored Diana's look. Was every female from Earth as attractive? On the island of Paradise, the queen of the Amazons, Hippolyta, was startled awake from her meditation, and her devotion to the gods was interrupted. Great Athena, protect her. She prayed, her heart filled with worry at the thought of her daughter. Enveloped in a mix of crimson red and golden chakra, his feet left the surface of the street as he started to slowly float. Behind his back, 10 pitch-black orbs came into existence, and with their apparition, a heavy pressure descended. Naruto blinked. 10. That wasn't possible. Super Sage Grams said he could only have 9. Had his other self managed to somehow create Gudatama? If that was what happened, his other self was more powerful than he'd given himself credit for. What's with the black balls? Oliver chuckled. You're prepping for a snooker game or something. They're the truth-seeking orbs. They erase all they touch. My other self must be really pissed to bring them out. So it's like a delete button but in real life. Oliver joked. And here I thought magic was a hack. Naruto rolled his eyes. It was not a physical force or something that could be seen or explained with science. It was the coercion that a superior existence could exert on the beings on a lower evolutionary scale. While the metahumans present at the scene were not too drastically affected, the regular humans on several tens of miles around were overwhelmed by a feeling of fear. Even before the rabbit goddess had thrown him into a dimensional portal, Naruto had been able to enter the six-path sage mode and combine it with his tailed beast mode. However, after almost a century, his mastery over it grew to the point where it could rival that of his ancestor, the sage of the six paths himself. That's a very bold claim. Naruto sucked his teeth. The only person more powerful than the sage was his own mother, the progenitor of Chakra herself. Not even Madara had come close to the man's power, no matter how much he bragged about doing so. With the red and yellow flash, his body disappeared. An instant later, he was 3 miles high up in the air, above Jump City, right in front of a galleon-class Gordanian ship. It was not the small type of ship that the Gordanian slavers used normally. It was much larger, almost half a mile long, with the crew numbering in the hundreds. It showed how much importance the Princess of Tamarin held for the Saiyans, since the Gordanians were nothing more, nothing less than the Saiyan monarchy's attack dogs. In front of such an enormous spaceship, Naruto looked like an ant. But the moment he appeared floating in the sky, the warship's tens of guns and cannons were trained on him. Even the largest particle cannon at the bow of the spaceship, a cannon capable of even blowing up smaller moons, started to glow and flicker, a sign of it being charged to fire. Damn it, Naruto. Don't throw yourself in front of danger so casually. Tsunade grumbled. Nothing's going to happen to him, he's him. Oliver nodded to himself. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Him. Coming in clutch, rising to the situation. Him. I see. Naruto nodded, although it was obvious that he didn't see. Tsunade's right though, you should exercise more caution with things like these. Diana frowned at him. Naruto smiled back. Relax, with how large the book is, I obviously didn't die here. The point still stands. Diana insisted. Alright, fine. He conceded. A hail of laser beams was shot at him but he seemed as calm and collected as ever. With a wave of his hand, one of the truth-seeking balls behind his back flew in front of him and took the form of an enormous black shield. The laser beams did not even make a sound of impact. At the contact with the black shield, they simply vanished. The Gordanians aboard the spaceship did not even have time to express their surprise because right after the first wave of fire, Naruto flew closer to the black shield and slapped it lightly with his palm. But that light slap caused a shockwave so powerful that the sky was completely cleared of clouds in a radius of tens of miles around. Batman's eyes widened beneath his cowl. Jesus. Oliver whispered. He'd only ever seen Clark perform such a feat with that much ease. God, Naruto. You can do that too. Oliver glanced at the boy. Not that easily I can't. Naruto didn't turn away from the screen. Seeing what his other self was capable of since the beginning of the book lit a fire in him that only grew brighter and hotter with each feat his other self displayed. He didn't want to have to wait a century to do any of that. He wanted to reach that level earlier. He had to reach that level earlier. Kakashi smiled slightly at his student, knowing what was going on in his head. The last time he had seen Naruto as motivated as he currently was when he found out about the Akatsuki's purpose. In the space of 4 years, the boy had grown from being unable to match a Chunin to single-handedly defeating Cajun fighting beings who could only classify as gods. What's his power level? Kara yelled. Barry took out one of the lens of his cowl and glanced at the screen through it before crushing it in his hand. It's over 9,000. Congratulations, you've broken your lens. Hal mocked him. He smirked at the lantern before his hand blurred in and it was a perfectly intact lens. Stupid time traveling. Hal grumbled. Tsunade stared at the man in mute shock. Similarly, Martian Manhunter and Wonder Woman, who had been watching the unfolding events with a blank look on their faces, were also blasted to thousands of feet away from the Gordanian ship's proximity. In fact, Naruto did not need to slap the shield that hard or to hit it at all. He could control it with a simple thought, with his mind. But he had done so in order to blow away the 3 members of the Justice League because he did not want for them to get killed too in the crossfire. How thoughtful, Clark said sarcastically. You'd think he didn't try to crush us all with gravity a few moments ago. Green Lantern managed to stabilize himself in the air the first, and he also caught his 2 teammates with his power rings constructs of green light. The 3 of them turned their heads and looked back at the Gordanian ship just in time to see the large black shield smashing against it. They had been expecting a very powerful explosion, or at least another shockwave similar to the one from a few moments before. But there was none of that. The moment the black shield clashed against the Gordanian ship, it turned into a black sphere that encased the half-a-mile-long Galleon-class starship within. Then, without even making a sound, the enormous sphere that had encapsulated the Gordanian ship imploded. A warship capable of even taking over a planet was turned into nothingness, just like that. After that, the now tiny orb flew back next to the other 9 truth-seeking orbs floating at his back. Jesus Christ! Great Hera! In front of a scene like that, Green Lantern and Wonder Woman could not help crying out the name of the gods they believed in. Martian Manhunter himself was mute, speechless. Even in the room, nobody spoke. Everyone, down to Naruto himself, was rendered speechless by the sheer destruction they were witnessing. Down below, on the ground, the rest of the Justice League and the 4 local heroes of Jump City were no less shocked either. Although it was night, Naruto's 6 paths Biju mode glowing like a miniature sun and the ship being almost half a mile long made them see what had happened perfectly, even despite the distance. Even for Batman and Superman, 2 veterans and fighting all kinds of aliens, it was the first time they had seen something as shocking as that. Clark had to agree. He'd seen lots of things in his young life, but never had he seen a single man wipe out an entire ship fleet in less than a minute. Jesus! Oliver said again, unable to think of anything else. Until then, Batman had always thought that with enough preparation time, planning, and money, he could go against anyone. Naturally, that led to a great level of self-confidence and even a certain amount of pride being born in his heart. He, a mere human, with no superpowers, had managed to stand on equal grounds even against incredibly powerful beings such as Superman, Wonder Woman and Martian Manhunter. However, when he saw the enormous Gordanian ship being erased from existence without even leaving a scrap of metal behind, he was shaken. What could I possibly do alone against a being like that? No, what could the Justice League do against someone like him? Come on, man. We've taken on worse than him. Hal frowned at the vigilante. Sure, the blonde showed a frightening display of power, but they'd face off against the likes of Darkseid who could do stuff like this in their sleep. You probably haven't in that world. Kakashi offered. Batman nodded. He had never met an enemy he didn't feel the Justice League couldn't face off against, no matter how slim the chances of victory were. But he had to admit, it was easy to lose hope in the face of people like the mercenary. His other self had obviously done so. At the same time, Batman's mind also went to the business card that Naruto had given him half a year before. Back then, he had found it weird that someone that was wearing a fox-themed mask and had a night-tailed fox companion would have such a strange alias, Caterpillar. But now he understood. At a first glance, Naruto had looked like an easygoing guy and a money grubber. A mercenary, fitting the stereotype. Ordinary and unassuming, like a caterpillar. But just like caterpillars transform into very beautiful butterflies once they come out of the cocoon and evolve, it was the same with Naruto when he revealed his true power. The power aside, that mode looks really good. Kara said. It's like an angel. Oliver squinted. Aren't angels terrifying to look at? They're no less of a sight though. And don't tell me you wouldn't be a little afraid if the guy ran up to you looking like that. Kara pointed at the screen where Naruto was clearing out the remainder of the Gordanians. I wouldn't be afraid. Sure you won't. Everyone watched with trepidation how the deity-like alien flew back on the ground. Though Superman tried to not show his inner emotions, a focused observer would notice how rigid his expression looked. It was even worse because Superman could feel that the alien's powers were of a magical nature, the bane of his physiology alongside kryptonite and red radiation. Yet you're definitely getting a religion. Oliver nodded. They'd probably set people on fire as a sacrifice to you too. Dinah admitted. Naruto grimaced. They'd give you offerings of food. Barry continued. That's not so bad. Naruto got cut off by hell. And blood. Wait, what? And their virgin daughters. Kara joined in. The blood of their virgin daughters. They'd offer you the blood of their virgin daughters as good. Could you 3 stop? Clark, who looked a little green, cut them off. Can you please get used to gore? Oliver rolled his eyes. And you really wanted to help out in Gotham? Batman silently agreed. It was why he didn't let the Kryptonian assist him with detective work. 9 out of 10 times, he was investigating unimaginably gruesome murders. The Kryptonian's will was strong, but a strong will didn't mean a strong stomach. Kara stuck her tongue out at her cousin but continued reading anyway. Nonetheless, Naruto was not interested in antagonizing them or getting back at them for trying to make things hard for him. Though he loved to joke around and act like a filled with youthfulness man, his mind was still that of an old man. In his eyes, the Justice League were nothing but a group of children that tried to pick a fight against an adult and got their butts whooped. Oliver flipped the mercenary on the screen. The bird. They weren't children. For him, it was enough if they learned their lesson and stayed put for a while. He had no further interest in quarreling with them, and he certainly no longer cared about preaching and force-feeding his philosophy of life to other people like when was a teenager. I don't force-feed people my philosophies. Naruto frowned. You were rather forceful when you were younger with your refusal to see things from other people's perspectives. Kakashi said. Thankfully, you've grown out of it. Naruto huffed but didn't respond. The red and yellow energy seeped back into his body and the 10 truth-seeking balls melted into his back, joining his chakra pool too. Without saying a word to the ones around him, he headed straight towards Coriander, who was still rooted in her place despite having woken up earlier from the genjutsu he had placed on her. Talk about scared stiff. Kara commented. At first, she thought Naruto had done something to keep her in place before she noticed the girl's trembling. She could move, she was just too afraid to do so. I've killed your captors. As I told you before, your parents hired me to rescue you. Naruto told her, and the translating device did its job to change his words into the language spoken on Tamarin. Coriander looked like she wanted to say something, but besides the trembling of her lower lip, she could not move her mouth. She was terrified. Watching a guy massacre hundreds of people like it's an everyday thing does that to a person. Oliver stroked his beard. It doesn't help that she already attacked me once and got knocked out. Naruto said. Hey, have you ever tried making people fall asleep through eye contact? Kara narrowed her eyes thoughtfully. Naruto shrugged. I'm not good enough at genjutsu to try that, and even then, there are very, very few techniques that don't need the target to have chakra. Kara tilted her head confusedly. But you made Starfire sleep. The Temple of Nirvana technique is one of that few. Clark let out a relieved sign inwardly. Magic and illusions were never good things on their own, much less combined. Come with me. I hope you will behave and not throw any temper tantrums. For your own good. A shaky nod was all the confirmation he needed before placing a hand on her shoulder and teleporting themselves back to his ship. Now, he did not need to physically restrain her anymore. The girl was too scared to go against his words. Horizontal ellipsis. I felt your power all the way from the other side of the planet. What the hell did you do? Kairubi asked when Naruto flew back to Europe with his ship to pick him up and leave the planet. In response to that, Naruto threw up a mouthful of coagulated purple-black blood in the toilet. Oh, I hate this. Half of his face was violet and there were patches of purple and black over his hands, forearms and chest too. It was the effect of drawing the polluted nature energy of the earth when he had entered the six-path sage mode. He had drawn a rather large amount of natural energy to conjure the truth-seeking orbs and use one of them to disintegrate that enormous Gordanian ship. Everyone grimaced at the sight. I'm guessing it's because of the pollution. Diana asked Naruto, who nodded sourly. I had a feeling it'd be bad, but that's nasty. Barry looked at the mercenary pityingly. Earth must be more polluted than I thought. Naruto said. It usually has me feeling sick, but not to this. What was happening currently was the reason why he always avoided using his sage mode unless it was necessary on the planets inhabited by technologically advanced sentient beings. Those planets would be infected and polluted by the beings living on it. When he entered the six-path sage mode on such a planet, it was as though he was drinking poison. Now, he was facing the consequences. After he threw up a few more times, he took a quick shower and came back to the living quarters of his ship where Coriander was still waiting on the very sofa where he had left her an hour ago. She had not moved at all. But she did manage to regain some of her composure in that time frame. When she saw the masked Naruto entering the room, she asked, "What are you going to do with me? Extort you?" Clark glanced at Naruto, who ignored him. Kara sighed. Let it rest, Clark. It was 4 million. Naruto sighed. Look, I told you 2 times already, your parents hired me to rescue you from the Saiyans. You're lying. Just tell me the truth. Coriander said, almost shouting. She looked very agitated. You're saving her life and that's how she shows her gratitude? Ungrateful little twerp. Kyuubi growled and one of his tails elongated, about to slap the snot out her, but Naruto put a hand on his head to stop him. It's alright, Kirima, Naruto said. It's not that bad, I'm fine. Clearly, Naruto was referring to the reason why Kyuubi was angry, the fact that he got seriously ill. When he looked at the poisoned visage of Naruto and then at the girl who had not even said a thank you, he wanted to beat her up good and teach her some manners. Turning his attention back to Coriander, Naruto said. I am a man of my word. I do not lie. Not in this kind of important matters. How are you not? My parents have been dead for years. The girl shouted, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. If a pin were to drop at that moment, it would probably be heard very clearly as everyone sat, shocked by the bombshell dropped on them. It was Naruto who broke the silence first. So that's why she was angry. In her eyes, you're just a stranger using an obvious but painful lie to coerce her into following you to an unknown place. Batman sighed quietly. He could understand the girl's pain, having nearly fallen victim to the same tactic too. So they didn't sell their daughter. Oliver muttered. Then who did? And more importantly, who gave Ruinak the job for Naruto to go rescue her? Barry narrowed his eyes. Clark's eyes widened as he thought of a possibility. Science. Ruinak must be working with the Science. If that's true, then Other U really is walking into a trap made specifically for him. Hal said, worried for the boy's alternate self. If he has any sense, he'll quit the job and let Ruinak solve his own problems. Naruto scowled. But if he's anything like you, he won't. Kakashi said. He's more likely to go there anyways if only to finish the job. Really hope he doesn't. Gaara said. No amount of caution could prepare one for a trap made for them. Naruto and Kyuubi looked at each other in doubt. Explain. Kyuubi ordered. It all started when the Gordanians attacked our planet. My sister had sold our planet's defense plans to the enemy. Because of her betrayal, Tamarin was conquered. In order to preserve the peace, for the sake of all the people of Tamarin, I was offered as a tribute to the Gordanians, as a slave. The poor girl. Diana thought. To be sold into slavery by the very same traitor responsible for the world state. It was a misfortune caused by an even greater misfortune. So that means there isn't even a war on Tamarin anymore, they've already lost. Hal sighed. The Gordanians couldn't keep getting away with this. That didn't stop her sister from giving her away. I'm pretty sure her sister just wanted her gun. Gaara flipped to the next page. As she said that, Coriander's green eyes glowed with anger and hatred. After that, my sister staged a coup and took control of Tamarin. Her men had executed the entire royal family, both my parents and my brother. Only I was left alive, sold to the Science who tortured and experimented on me for years. Energy bolts started taking form around her hands and she looked like she was about to lose control of them in her rage, but a large tail slapped her across the face so hard that she was thrown off the sofa. Her energy bolts disappeared back into her body before they could be fired. If you as much as damage one chair in this ship after all he went through to rescue your sorry ass, I'll eat you alive, bounty be damned. This is your one and only warning. Kirima growled. That threat would have come out as amusing had it been the previously tiny fox that made it, but that was not the case. Instead of a tiny fox cub there stood an enormous nine-tailed fox now, a fierce demon that cast a shadow over the entire living room with its eyes. Kirima had no lost love for humans of any kind, that was why his behavior towards Wonder Woman had been strange in Naruto's eyes. Normally, this rough and violent attitude was what he showed to other people, not to mention how angry he was at the moment because Naruto had gotten himself hurt. Naruto smiled half-heartedly. It was touching to see Kirima worked up over him, but it was at a very wrong time. Starfire was already a mess of anger, fear and sorrow. She didn't need the extra threat of death looming over her. I understand he's angry, but that's going too far. Diana glared at the screen. That's how he usually is. Naruto said. The real oddity is how nice he is to you. Characteristic or not, he's taking it out on the wrong person. The girl hasn't done anything. Like I said, that's Kirima. He takes out his anger indiscriminately. Naruto shrugged. But don't worry, unless Starfire attacks us, he won't actually follow through with it. I hope. That seemed to calm the woman down slightly, but it didn't make her any less annoyed by what she was watching. Kirima. Get a hold of yourself. That's enough. Naruto said seriously. Though still pissed, Kyuubi listened to his words and reverted to his regular form. Naruto took him in his arms and then placed him on his shoulder where Kyuubi liked to sit usually. "Follow me to the control room," Naruto told the girl, and she hurried to come after him. Kyuubi smacking her with his tail had reminded her that she was not in a situation where she could throw tantrums and that the man in front of her was strong enough to kill her in a heartbeat, unlike the Gordanians from whom she had managed to escape before. After taking a seat in front of the computer, he called his information broker. "Come on, pick up you dirty rat," Naruto said in annoyance after the fourth unanswered call. "I have a bad feeling about this," Kyuubi said. "I don't know, man. Ruinak has never tried to screw with me. He's never lied to me about job-related things. It's odd that you'd actually trust someone who gambled his own family away, Naruto." Clark reminded the boy who snorted. "Other me. But there are only two options, either the girl is lying about her parents being dead, or that rat bastard is lying. And I sensed that this girl is speaking the truth." Naruto shook his head. "No, we can't take this as absolute. You know your negative emotion sensing can be fooled sometimes. If she truly believes that she is speaking the truth, you will not detect any lies even if what she says is not right. It could very be that she was made to believe that her parents were killed. That sounds more likely if you think what a piece of shit her sister is and that Ruinak has never given us a reason to doubt him." But Kyuubi was holding his position firmly. "Trust me on this, Naruto. There's something fishy going on. I'm on Kurama's side here," Gaara said. "It's really fishy that her parents would have you bring her back now of all times even if they're actually alive." "As am I," Diana agreed. Naruto sighed. "I'm not against Kurama, you know. But hope for the best, prepare for the worst. In this case, the worst can be easily avoided." The Amazon argued. "Is it really that hard to just quit your job?" "Other me, Diana," Naruto reminded her. "And yet, I'd have packed up and called it a day by now." Naruto looked at him in doubt but did not argue. Kyuubi did not say things like that often, but when he did, his instincts often proved to be spot on. As he typed on the keyboard to set the coordinates for the next space warp, towards Tamaran and the Vega system, he resolved himself to approach the rest of the mission with extra caution. "I'd rather you didn't even try completing it, but it doesn't matter anyways," Diana sighed. Naruto smiled at her. "Hey, I'm happy you're worried about me, but it's a book. I'm still here, unemployed and with more brain cells than my other." The Amazon raised an eyebrow. "Week or two. For now. It took your other self nearly a century to reach where he is. Do you really think you'll live that long?" Diana smirked at him. "I'm not an eventually kind of guy. I'd rather put in more work to get it faster," he retorted. Diana's smirk widened. "Hard work, MHM. Gaara watched the two go back and forth with a strange look. If she didn't know better, she'd think they were flirting or trying to. Anyways, the chapter's over. Yet, finally. Oliver jumped to his feet and stretched exaggeratedly, making Dinah roll her eyes. "So I'm actually going through with it." Naruto sighed disappointedly. "He's at least chosen to approach with caution, take comfort in that," Batman said. Oliver stared at the vigilante for a few moments. "You know, I never realized it till now, but you sound a little like Kevin Conroy." "What?" a confused Batman asked. "You really had to remind me of that, didn't you?" Barry sighed sadly. "Who's Kevin Conroy?" Gaara asked, noticing her cousin's despondent look. "He was the voice actor for one of the main heroes of the Unlimited series," Clark said. "That one I used to play for you on that old VCR in my room. I used to wish I could meet him at least once in my life. We don't always get the things we want, man. But while he might be around anymore, he still lives here." Oliver patted the Kryptonian's chest. "In your heart. Don't be sad that he's dead, be happy for what he did while he was alive." Naruto watched the archer talk. "This Conroy guy sounds like he was a good man. He practically made our childhoods. It sucks when people you've known and liked since you were a kid die," Barry said. Naruto had to agree. "I know how that feels, man. At least he left something to remember him by." Barry smiled. "Something? That man's crafted a legacy by himself. You know what? If you make it to Earth, we can all meet up in Clark's old room to rewatch the series. Sounds good." Naruto hummed. "Yeah, I'd like that." The slightly wholesome moment was broken when Clark blinked. "Wait, why do you want him to watch it in my house?" "'Cause you're the only one who still has the discs and the player," Barry said. "We could just stream it in the watchtower or something," the Kryptonian retorted. Yuri. No. Batman shut the man down. I'm sure people would be interested in knowing how and why someone's watching a cartoon from orbit. You just don't want to have to pay for the data plan. The speedster grumbled. There's always piracy. Oliver offered. Are you kidding? You're a billionaire, you could even have a movie delivered to you in Blu-ray before it even premieres in a cinema. What do you need to pirate movies for? Hal asked the man disbelievingly. Oliver shrugged. You can never outgrow piracy. I only pay for movies and games when I can't find the pirated ones. And when they don't work as well as the paid version. Clark added, much to his cousin's surprise. When he saw the looks he was getting, he smiled sheepishly. I downloaded a pirated game once and it crashed every time I tried adding a DLC or mod to it. I was forced to pay the whole $19. I can't believe you, of all people, would do that. Diana snorted. Like you don't. Clark gave her a dirty look. I don't need to, I get more or less everything for free. Endorsements and all. You know how it is. She smiled proudly. It beats having to spend data on streaming the same thing over and over, and I'd hate to have to pay $70 for a game that might turn out to be bad. Kara shrugged. Hal sighed. Criminals, the lot of you. It's somewhat ironic to see crime fighters admitting to committing a crime. Gaara remarked. Well, we're not exactly doing a crime, Barry started slowly. We are not the ones pirating it, we're just supporting them. I mean, better piracy than gang activity, right? The heroes nodded, content and supporting the convoluted notion. It'd be a shame if they put down the keyboard and picked up guns. Kara agreed. Yet, we could have stopped them if we wanted to, we have a walking supercomputer on our team. Dinah nodded. But you have to stop and ask yourself, what would they do if they can't do the one thing keeping them busy and paid? Get jobs. Like normal people. Hal insisted. You're just defending them because you get stuff from them for free. That's an unfortunate bonus, yes. Dinah shrugged. You are aware that if they don't make enough money, the companies handling the movies and games will have to cancel them or shut down entirely, right? Batman asked. We are, but most people still pay, right? Carol looked at Naruto for support. Unless your version piracy means intercepting ships to steal camera rolls, which nobody does to my knowledge, I can't help you. Naruto raised his arms. Piracy is more or less the same, you're stealing the files from the source to distribute for free. Oliver explained. Naruto shook his head. I don't know enough about it to judge, man. It's called piracy, they wouldn't aim it after a crime if it was objectively good or bad. Tsunade rolled her eyes. Let's just go back to reading about you kicking ass, shall we? Kakashi cut Naruto off before he could talk. You mean massacre another group of people? Kara asked. If that's what you want to call it. Well, he's obviously going up against the signs here. Hal sighed, his worry for the bounty hunter resurfacing. He might seem like a badass, but even he can't fight an entire world. The book's still large. Dinah gestured towards the book that flew to Jaeon's hands. Oh, so you think he single-handedly wiped out an entire species? Hal scoffed. It's not impossible. Clark shrugged. We've taken on people capable of reducing a planet to an asteroid field. I still can't believe what kind of people you have in your dimension. Naruto muttered. How do you fight people like that? With prep time. Oliver glanced at Batman, who rolled his eyes. Let it go, Oliver. The Dark Knight said. Kimi the Archer still felt insulted about not being considered worth making a contingency plan for. Didn't you fight a guy who split the moon in half? Kakashi asked. Oh. Diana raised an eyebrow. Tonari, I'm guessing. Yet. Hurt like hell though. Naruto subconsciously rubbed his arm that took most of the brunt of the technique. To this day, he still had no idea how to replicate it, and even though they were relatively cool now, Tonari remained tight-lipped about it. Split the moon in half. Oliver mouthed to Dinah, who shrugged. You don't look like it left any effects on you though. Clark said, a little skeptical when he didn't find any scars on the boy's form. There wasn't even evidence of a lightning-coated fist having been used to run him through. Yet, stuff like that usually leaves people at least looking like they slept on an open furnace. Hal agreed. Naruto shrugged. If every damage that got dealt to me left a scar, I'd probably be skinless by now. Skinless. Clark blinked. You don't want to know. It seems you've also got your fair share of absurdly powerful enemies. Diana remarked, feeling impressed. She'd seen many people capable of surviving an attack of that scale, but it was no less impressive. You have a guy who shoots lasers out of his eyes and people who can wreck planets. A moon's nothing. There's powerful and there's relatively powerful. Just because you don't have enemies quite as destructive as ours, doesn't make them any weaker. Diana comforted him, neglecting to mention that Clark and Kara were among those people, just on the opposite side. Kara joined in. Yet, besides, you still have that Sage mode. You tanked a moon splitter, just get stronger and you'll probably find yourself busting planets in time or something. I guess you're right. Naruto smiled at her. Come to think of it, what happened to your world after that? You know, with the tides and moon rotation and all. She asked. We put the moon back together. Kara and Diana glanced at each other. Put it back together? I'm not even going to ask how. Hal sighed. As if a dimension filled with superpowered ninjas and alien gods wasn't absurd enough. Yet, me neither. Kara nodded to herself. Naruto deflated slightly. He'd been hoping someone would ask. He looked at Diana, who looked away for a few moments before she folded. How did you do it? She asked. He smiled at her brightly. Since you're so curious, first I think we should start reading now. Kakashi cut him off loudly. He ignored his former student's stink eye in favor of taking a seat with Tsunade, who chuckled. Nice work with the intervention, Hatake. Couldn't have done it better myself. He tells it to everyone who makes the mistake of asking, and for some reason, I'm always there to hear it. Needless to say, I'm more than tired already. He sighed. You do know he just does it to mess with you now, right? She asked. I know. That's why I stopped him. When everyone stopped talking, Jean opened the book and the screen came down as he began to read. Chapter 9, Demonic God. That's not foreboding at all. Barry joked. How many demonic gods do we know? Clark asked Batman. Unless the Spectre counts, Trigon. Trigon? The Titan girl's father. Oliver asked and got a nod. Well shit. Who's Trigon? Naruto asked. He's a demon whose main motivation is conquest and destruction. Diana explained. He operates by having a child in his target worlds to use as portals when they come of age. And when do they come of age? Naruto asked. When they turn 17, Diana trailed off. Batman, how old is Raven? She'll be 17 next year. He made a mental note to travel to Jump City for an actual meeting with the team. As if having read his mind, Superman added. Take Constantine with you. Or Dr. Fate. His expression turned sour. I'll take Zadara. We both know demons isn't his area of expertise. Clark retorted. Now's not the time to let your own opinions get in the way. Oh great, another invasion. Barry sighed. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Clark assured the speedster. I'd rather that bridge not even exist at all. It's great that we're all ready for an invasion, but the real question is, what's a demon going to be doing in outer space? Hal asked. You know, since it's like that's where most of the story's probably going to be taking place. Chances are it's not an actual demon god, then you all just derailed off the topic for nothing. Tsunade stopped them from talking. Besides, this is still just the title. Let's go to the actual story first. As they quieted down, Jean continued to read. What in the world? Did I put in the wrong coordinates? Naruto muttered to himself when he saw the desolate scenery outside, through the pilot cabin's window. It was a scene extremely similar to the one that he had seen half a year ago when he went to the Rao system at the request of Superman and saved the young Argonian girl, Kara Zor-El. Countless asteroids littered the space where the planet Tamaran should have been. Oh God, Barry whispered. The others remained silent, shocked and horrified by the fate that had befallen Starfire's world. At least Krypton was still a planet, Tamaran had been reduced to rocks. I figured the Gordanians would go back to finish the job, but damn. Kakashi shook his head sadly. If you're sad, imagine how Starfire would feel when she finds out. Oliver said quietly. This is insane. Naruto said. You've beaten them already, why destroy their world on top of it? I wish I knew, Naruto. Nobody really knows why the Gordanians and the Citadel do what they do. Hal sniffed. See? This is why the Thagnarians hate them so much. If they hadn't fought as hard as they did, this would be Thagnar too. Clark suddenly felt guilty for berating Hawkman and Hawkgirl for going out of their way to kill every Gordanian they saw. Computer, confirm our location, Naruto ordered. At his request, the large screen of the computer showed a very detailed map of the Milky Way galaxy, a map that proceeded to be zoomed in rapidly. It took just a few seconds for the map to be zoomed in until only a planetary system was displayed on the screen, the Vega system. On it, an inverted green triangle was blinking above the planet Tamarin. But when he looked through the windows of the ship, Tamarin was nowhere to be seen. Countless chunks of rocks and a large amount of debris was all that was left of the previously flourishing planet. Although Coriander did not understand the Elmeratian language that Naruto used to interact with the AI of the ship, it did not take a genius to understand what was going on when she saw their location on the map of the Vega system and the massive asteroids outside. Tears welled up in her eyes and she started crying bitterly. "Can't say I want to know how she feels," Barry muttered pityingly. Losing her parents, her people and her entire planet. The girl literally had nothing left in life. From someone who had had everything, Coriander had lost everything. Initially, a princess of the royal family and the next in line to become the ruler of her planet, she was sold out by her own parents, at a very frail age, for the sake of the greater good, for peace. She became a slave and she even lost her innocence when one of the Gordanian jailers raped her. Diana's eyes widened in horror. What? It's like these Gordanians find new ways to make themselves worse. Oliver scowled, feeling anger for the girl run through him. If he ever found a Gordanian on Earth, he'd shoot it dead first and question it later. Kakashi, on the other hand, wasn't as emotional. He'd seen things like that happen far too often to be affected by it anymore. It was an unfortunate consequence of being captured, especially as an attractive female, as well as a reason most women didn't join the military. Why would they do something like that to her? Kara shuddered. She didn't want to imagine losing her virginity to one of the same people who captured her. It's an effective, albeit brutal way to break a person's spirit. Naruto said somberly. The ones with the strongest will move on, but they never forget. Those who aren't as strong don't find it as easy. And a broken spirit means a docile slave, a compliant captive or a loose-lipped prisoner. Batman finished for him. Naruto nodded. It's sad, but that's life. Chances are, the guy just felt like doing it, and since she technically belonged to them, well, best we can do is hope she got her pound of flesh or he's dead. Diana nodded, but her anger didn't simmer down. Purity was one of the things most Amazons valued. One of the worst fates that could befall an Amazon was to be robbed of theirs by force. She had murdered a Gordanian in revenge later on, but the damage done to her was obviously not repaired. Instead, things only continued to spiral downwards from there. After killing her jailers and attempting to escape, the Gordanians thought of her as too dangerous and sold her to their allies, the Scion monarchy. In the following years, she had endured all kinds of torture and experiments at the hands of the Scions. That's why they hired Naruto to find her. They want her back. Realization struck Hal. And they want to take him too along with her. Clark nodded. Whatever doubts anyone had about Naruto's meeting with the Scions being a trap were gone. And if he does, he'll be springing whatever trap they've set for him. Tsunade sighed. Naruto was a brilliant tactician, but he was no strategist, and what he needed here was the latter. He couldn't afford to make things up on the fly against people prepared to combat him specifically. I hope your other self has a plan, Naruto. And a very good one at that. Diana said worriedly. I hope so too, Diana. Naruto frowned. Don't worry, the big book could just be covering your life on an experimenting table. Kara shot at him. Naruto backed up a little. I'm happy you're worried about me, Kara, but it's the other me, remember? She paused. Yeah, sorry about that. He nodded. And now, even her homeworld had been destroyed. Coriander let herself down on her knees and sobbed in her hands. Over the course of his long life, after witnessing the death of many worlds, including the apocalypse of his own, Naruto inadvertently became detached from the world around him. He would enjoy the moment and have fun, but he always kept other people and places at an arm's length, never letting anyone in his heart except for his lifelong friend, Kyuubi. However, at that moment, hearing the girl's anguished cries cracked his heart. Do you understand pain a little now? If you don't share someone's pain, you can never understand them. Even to this day, almost a century after his fateful battle against the leader of the Akatsuki, Uzumaki Nagato, Naruto could vividly remember every single moment of it, every single word of his former enemy. Nagato was the one person that had marked him the most, even more than his mentor, the Toad Sage. Because the older Naruto grew, the more he realized the naivete of Jiraiya's dream and the harsh truth in Pain's words. In spite of himself, Naruto nodded. As much as he wanted to believe the latter, Jiraiya's words were too idealistic and borderline delusional, especially when coming from a man who'd fought in 2 great wars. There was no cycle of hatred to break, and peace couldn't be attained by simply ending the cycle. Madara and Pine's methods had unfortunately been the effective ones, and they'd been proven right even if posthumously. It had taken everyone uniting against a common enemy, and even then, they'd had to be strong-armed into putting animosities aside to force peace. And he wasn't so deluded to think there was still peace because everyone had forgotten everything they'd done to one another. The main reason they were still working together was fear. Fear of what could happen again if they reverted to the old ways, and mostly, the fear of him. Jiraiya's form of peace was a pipe dream. Peace through understanding could never be attained. Not while individuality still existed. With different thoughts would come different ideals, and eventually, two or more would end up clashing. Naruto lowered himself to Koreander's level and put his hand gently on her shoulder. I'm sorry for your loss. Her situation hit very close to home for Naruto. He may have not had it as bad as Koreander, to be enslaved and raped by his captors, but, just like her, he had also been sacrificed by his own father for the sake of the village, for the greater good. Betrayed by their family for the sake of peace. And just like her, he had also lost his home world. He understood all too well her pain. And that was why his passive attitude cracked when faced with her cries. Misery loves company. Oliver said humorlessly. And nothing brings people together like shared misfortune. Even though Oliver didn't mean it the way she thought, Diana twitched. It was just a small show of compassion on Naruto's side, but for the crying Koreander, it was the drop that spilled the glass. She lunged at him, and her arms wrapped around his back tightly as she started to cry out loud in his chest. I have nothing left, nothing. Koreander said through her tears. What could he say to comfort the young woman desperately crying in his arms? That things have to get worse before they can get better? Or that she's at the lowest point in her life and that from now on, things can only go up? In his mind, such cheap lip service was disgusting. He chose to stay silent, only offering her a shoulder to cry on. Batman nodded. It reminded him of the times where people would comfort him with bland words after his parents' deaths, talking about how life only got better and the dawn came after the darkest night. In the end, life didn't get better for him. If anything, it only kept going downhill. Even now, he couldn't say he was happy with his life. Batman was more than a suit of armor for him now, it was the lifeline that kept him from spiraling. Naruto let out a drawn-out, despondent sigh. In this dog-eat-dog world, being weak is almost like a sin. But even if you're powerful, you can only guarantee your own survival. For all my power, I could never protect everything. On the grand scale of the universe, one man is nothing. In front of a reality-bender god, even I would be in danger. Against the all-powerful force of the void, in front of the universe's power, I am but a speck of dust. A rather pessimistic way of looking at life. Diana said. He's not exactly wrong. Oliver shrugged. In the larger universe, we're not important enough for anything I do to matter. That's why we act within the field where we do matter. A shark doesn't go into a water of whales and expect not to be pushed around. Naruto said. You can't expect to change the world when you can't even change the small place you find yourself in. It's why only the present matters, not the past or the future. It is what happens in the present that determines the future. Diana smiled at him. Wise words, Naruto. It's a little frightening how different from your other self you are sometimes. We are not exactly different, it's just our experiences that differ. Naruto said. Chances are, if I was taken from my world in the exact same way in time he was, I'd have ended up like him too. There were some groups and organizations like the Green Lantern Corps that tried to uphold peace and justice in the universe, but they were only minimally successful and their death toll was very high. Despite their efforts, intergalactic wars still raged on, greedy dictators took over planets and enslaved their inhabitants, and mad conquerors destroyed everything in their path. And that was only on a large scale, to say nothing about the countless conflicts that took place every day on every planet, armed conflicts, killings, kidnappings, physical and sexual abuse, torturing, human trafficking. I've fought against evil for decades, even after coming into this new world. But no matter what I did, it always came back. No matter how much I stepped on it, the darkness crawled back, like a cockroach. Evil is like darkness. It's not an existence in itself, it is simply the absence of its opposite. Naruto shrugged. And the brightest lights cast the darkest shadow. Oliver interrupted him. Even though it was said in fiction, Martin's words still hold in real life. I'm pretty sure that was just Scott. Barry corrected him. Let's just say it's both. Yin and yang, evil and good, darkness and light. Supposedly, For life to exist, there has to be a balance between these two opposing sides. But where is the light when I can see only darkness? Who is the light and what does it do to stop the ever-growing darkness? Where are all the benevolent gods that so many people worship and pray to? Only a fool that relies on higher powers to save them. Batman said. We are not going to listen to you diss religion again, Bats. Remember that slugfest you had with Huntress after you said she was wasting her time with church? Barry reminded the man who winced a bit. He'd won the fight, but not without a few scars to remind him of the event. Religion in itself isn't a mistake, it's the over-reliance on it that's wrong. Diana sighed. We pray to gods too, but we won't ask them to do for us what we can do for ourselves. Tell that to some people. Oliver scoffed. Naruto and Superman stayed quiet. The topic of religion was something they went out of their way to avoid getting involved in. Naruto had no wild thoughts about him bearing the role of the light. He was but a tired old man, a lone man. He had been the so-called child of the prophecy, but he had still failed at protecting his own home world. If he could not protect his loved ones and his home, he had no illusions about being able to protect the universe at large. His power may have grown by a lot, but just like his powers, the strength of the enemy had increased just as much if not more. Fighting against the darkness is like fighting a many-headed monster, which, each time a neck is severed, sprouts a head even fiercer and cleverer than before. Darkness is ever-evolving, ever-spreading and indestructible. That was the conclusion that he had reached after more than 100 years of life. That the laws of the universe made it so there would always be darkness. Darkness would never be destroyed for as long as sentient living beings existed. And this thought filled him with helplessness. Over the years, it made him lose much of the drive that he used to have in his early teen years when he wanted to protect every innocent being, regardless of whether they were friends or strangers. The despair of knowing that no matter what he did, darkness would never be extinguished, it slowly made him become detached from the world around him. Naruto rubbed his eyes. His other self was placing on himself burdens that weren't his to bear. But there were moments like the present one when he came in contact with people whose pain he could relate to. People like Superman, people like Kurander. Those moments always shook his cold heart and perturbed his inner peace and calm. Horizontal ellipsis. What are you going to do now, Naruto? Kyuubi asked quietly. After taking the sleeping Tamarin princess to one of the rooms in the ship's living quarters, Man and Fox were now back in the control room, alone. I'm going to turn and Vandal Savage to the signs first. Really? Clark sighed tiredly. Yes, I know it's a trap. Yes, I'll be careful. No, my other self's not running away. Let's stop beating a dead horse. Naruto snapped irritability. Having everyone complain to him about the actions of his other self was beginning to grate on him. Yeesh. Kara muttered. You do realize that this bounty was most likely a highly elaborated trap from the beginning, right? Kyuubi asked again. Oh, I am betting on that, Naruto said darkly. He's out for blood. Oliver. Barry looked disturbed by that. Come on, what if he just wants to get them arrested or something? Let's be honest, Barry, he's going there to put the signs on a t-shirt. Hal shook her head. He's turning them to a chalk outline. Kara said. Naruto rolled his eyes. You're awfully enthusiastic to see death, especially considering you don't kill. Kara shrugged. It helps that they have it coming. Clark didn't bother arguing with her. From the moment that he saw that Tamarin was destroyed, he realized that Kyuubi's hunch about Ruinak betraying them was right all along. As one of the top information brokers in the Milky Way galaxy, there was no way that Ruinak did not know that Korion's parents were dead or that Tamarin had been destroyed. That rat betrayed us, Kyuubi said. Most likely, he was paid by the signs to deliver us to him. I can totally see those crazed scientists wanting to dissect you and me to see what makes us tick and what gives us our power. And that scum of a rat even sold his wife and kids for money, to say nothing of his willingness to sell you. Yet, it's kind of weird to trust a person who could sell his own family. Barry said. Having a mutual understanding doesn't mean trust. Batman said. He worked with the rat because it provided him with work. The rat worked with him because he saw money from doing so. That's just business. Exactly. Naruto snapped his fingers. Naruto nodded his head and added. The bounty to save the Princess of Tamarin was probably just to distract us and give more of a reason and make sure we entered one of the signs bases. Cold laughter came from him as he said, but I will play their game. At his different than usual demeanor, Kyuubi jumped off Naruto's shoulder and then stood in front of him. He looked him in the eye and said meaningfully. Are we going all out? All out. Clark blinked. So that show on Earth wasn't you going all out? Naruto shrugged. I don't know what else my other self has up his sleeves. I'm guessing that means you too. Batman asked. If you took off your mask, I'd be happy to tell you. Naruto smiled. No. Then I guess we'll never know. Naruto chuckled softly. You know me so well, Kirama. As they were speaking, over a dozen space warp tunnels appeared within 200 miles of their ship. The radar of the ship went crazy and alarms started blaring as multiple hostile targets appeared within its scope. From those space warp tunnels, almost 40 frigate-class and even 8 galleon-class warships came out. Clark gaped at the fleet. That's even worse than the Gordanians on Earth. You don't say. Dinah muttered. I hope whatever the Saiyans had bribed the rat with was worth trading his life for, because I'll rip him to shreds after I am done here. Naruto growled. Oliver shuddered. That doesn't sound like you at all. Yet, it's like you and Kirama decided to do a fusion dance and hop on a microphone. That sounds nightmare fuel, man. Barry said. Yet, I get that a lot. Naruto nodded before the second part registered. Wait, are you implying I can't sing? The speedster raised his hands. No, it's just, your voice has this hoarse tone in it, not the kind a person uses to sing. Pop Smoke had it too. Kara pointed out, much to Dinah's displeasure. Pop Smoke used to rap and his voice is a lot deeper than Naruto's. Oliver said. Imagine if Naruto decided to go down the same route. He'd sound like Pop Smoke's deformed cousin, Pop Steam. Kara snickered. Naruto ignored Diana's laughter. Oh fuck you. It was not his normal voice, it was deeper and it sounded demonic. The nails of his fingers had turned into claws, and if it had not been for his masking jutsu that made his hair look golden yellow, it could have been seen that his hair had become blood red, compared to the regular strawberry blonde from before. Under his mask, his canines grew into fangs as well, and his already thick whisker-like marks became darker and deeper. Check his power level again, Barry. Kara screamed. Barry stared at the screen in mock amazement. Is this the power of a Super Saiyan god? What the hell is a Super Saiyan? Tsunade looked at Clark, who shrugged. I don't know, I didn't watch the show. He said. Ask Batman. Batman glared at the Kryptonian before sighing. They're a fictional race of aliens. I see. She nodded slowly. A beeping sound was being made by the computer, showing an incoming transmission, but a clawed finger pressed on a key to reject it. He did not need to hear what the incoming fleet of warships had to say to know their intentions. On the large screen of his computer, he could see the footage recorded by the AI. The ships that had appeared on their radar carried the emblems of the Saiyan monarchy and the Gordanian Empire. They think they can trap and capture us like a beast? Come, Kirama. It's time we reminded the world what happens after provoking a slumbering beast. The fox met the man's fist in a fist bump, and, as the two of them looked at each other, bloodthirsty grins crept on their faces. In the next moment, their silhouettes teleported out of the ship. Damn, I actually kind of feel sorry for the Saiyans now. Oliver said. Tell me about it. Hal replied. That was the look of people looking to do nothing other than destroy. Horizontal ellipsis. Hundreds of ships were firing laser beams at an enormous monstrosity. A fission-type missile exploded against the torso of the beast, and an enormous mushroom-like cloud of fire rose for tens of miles into the sky, even puncturing the stratosphere of the planet. A roar of pain came from the beast as a patch of its chest was burned off. I knew you said Kirama could get even bigger than before, but this is unbelievable. A dumbstruck Kara stared at the screen. Whether or not you believe it does not make it any less factual. Everyone tensed momentarily as Kirama appeared on Naruto's legs. Oh, you finally decided to come back out. Naruto smirked. Kirama rolled his eyes and went over to lay on Diana's laps. I couldn't bear to miss out on watching myself cutting loose. It's good to see you outside again. Diana smiled at the fox that nodded. This isn't right. This wasn't in our calculations. Our data was wrong. A frail-looking green lizard man yelled hysterically. This is nothing like the simulations. Oliver did an impression of a stormtrooper. They had not known that the tiny pet of the mercenary they wanted to capture would transform into a world-destroying behemoth. That fission-type missile was the strongest weapon of mass destruction they could use without endangering the very core of the planet their race was living on. But that weapon that could lay waste to an entire nation had only scraped some skin off the beast's chest. The one that looked like the commander of the lizard men screamed. Everyone, evacuate the planet. Prepare the Star Destroyers and blow up everything to dust. Blow them all up along with the planet. Hey, does anyone else think that's a bit too drastic? Dinah asked. I don't think they have any other choice. If we got attacked by something that looked like a rabid fox ate a million Mario mushrooms, we'd probably want to nuke Earth too. Oliver said, much to Kirima's offense. Rabid. The tailed beast growled at him, exposing the set of daggers it called teeth. It's a figure of speech, I'm not calling you that. The terrified archer stuttered out. His adjutants could not help yelling out in disbelief. But sir, our home and everything we've worked so hard for will. The adjutant, however, did not finish speaking when the sky suddenly seemed to turn black. His words died out in his throat when an enormous sphere of purple-black energy cast a shadow over the capital city of the planet. What's that? Clark gulped. Naruto hissed. Kirima's trademark, the Bijutama. They don't need to blow up their planet anymore, he'll do it for them. Is it really that powerful? Gaara asked, looking at Kirima who stared at the screen enviously. She knew the fox was far from weak, but she still didn't believe such destructive power could be packed into something this small. A normal-size Bijutama would normally lay waste to a great village. But one this size. Naruto shook his head. Damn. And ninjas managed to trap and seal it in a baby? They were crazy as hell. Boom. A cataclysmic explosion boomed. A white light blinded every living being in range and the shockwave it generated deafened everyone a second later. The energy shield that should have been capable of defending even against a shot from a star-destroying particle cannon was obliterated. Oh god. Clark stared at the screen in awe, as did everyone save for the grinning Kirima. What kind of person have you become, Naruto? Kakashi said to himself. Not even Madara had been capable of destruction on such a scale. Was time really all a person needed to become like this? Maybe it was. He'd witnessed firsthand how much Naruto grew in the space of just 2 years. Even Batman couldn't contain his shock. He'd witnessed firsthand how much it took to destroy a star. If those shields hadn't been there, the city itself wouldn't have stood a chance. He looked at the blonde ninja and the fox on Diana's laps. Almost everything his other self could do, Naruto could do the same, and knowing it was to a lesser degree didn't make him feel any less comfortable. The two were walking nukes, there was no other way to put it. Oppenheimer would have a heart attack if he saw that. Barry chuckled nervously. 20 galleon-type warships equipped with star-destroying cannons flew in front of the enormous beast. But despite the destructive might of their warships, everyone on board trembled at the sight of the colossal beast standing ahead of them. They have never seen anything as monstrous as that before. Blood-red fur, over 1,500 feet in height and over 2,500 feet in length. At its back, 9 enormous tails created tornadoes just with simple twitches. It was a gargantuan 9-tailed demon fox. Kirima. Sea of Fire. Naruto shouted. He was on top of the enormous fox's head, but he was so small that he could not be seen from outside. The fur of the beast's head was even taller than him. He was no bigger than a fly was on a regular fox. He sat on his knees, with both hands pressed down on the head of Kyuubi. A massive amount of chakra was being passed on from him to the demon below through his hands. The titanic demon roared. A conic breath of fire covered the entire sky. Like the furious waves of an ocean, the stream of fire obliterated everything in its path. The several miles-long star-destroying warships were reduced to liquid metal in mere seconds. Flames hotter than the sun melted everything. Hal grimaced. That sounded terrifying. That's even worse than Clark's heat vision, Naruto. Gaara remarked. I knew you two would be doing some epic shit, but this is some biblical level destruction. If it makes you feel better, I can't do that, and unless he's been holding out on me, neither can Kirima. Naruto said. The fox raised an eyebrow. Didn't I make you breathe fire once? Once. It was hell. And in the middle of that hell, demonic laughter shook the skies. Wahaha. Die. Die. It should be me, not him. Kirima lamented. I let you run free a few times. Naruto reminded the fox. Letting me kill criminals isn't the same. Kirima gave him the stink eye, ignoring the uncomfortable looks the heroes got from his words. And I can't use a Bijutama to wipe out a gathering of rogue ninja now, can I? Naruto sighed. Fair. Kyuubi reveled in the feeling of power, in the slaughter. Power like he had never wielded back in the elemental nations. A power not any lower than that of the 10-tailed beast, a god. Kirima hummed and thought as he left Diana's laps to stand on Naruto's shoulder. The 10 tails had made quick work of him and all his siblings together. For his other to claim himself equal to that was a very bold claim. Or was that the result of Naruto's chakra empowering him too? See, Naruto? This is why I insist on you training all the time. Naruto rolled his eyes. 10 tails? Diana asked. Gaara, having already known what it was, didn't bother asking. I'll tell you about it later. He did not have many opportunities to let loose like that. When Naruto had unsealed him from his body, he was in his 40s. It took Naruto nearly 3 decades of studying the art of Funjutsu before he became proficient and confident enough to undo the seal without killing himself in the process. But after 40 years spent locked by the Shinigami seal, much of Kyuubi's chakra had seeped into Naruto, fusing with him. That was why Naruto's whisker marks were so thick and dark now by default, and that was also why his golden blonde hair had become a strawberry blonde, almost red. Before unsealing Kyuubi, the man in Biju had been very close to the point where they would completely fuse into one single entity. When Naruto finally unsealed him, the Biju lost a part of himself in the process. In the present, Kyuubi could not regenerate his chakra like before, simply by drawing it in from the outside world. That's why he had become a glutton that could eat 24/7. He converted the physical energy from anything he ate into chakra. That was also why he took on the appearance of a tiny fox cub most of the time, to preserve his energy. That explains the gluttony, Barry said. Kirama frowned, not feeling as envious of his other self anymore. If his other self couldn't regenerate chakra anymore, that implied he was living on borrowed time. Tail beasts were made of chakra. The only reason they never got weaker was because they regenerated chakra at the same rate that they expelled it. Naruto, having thought the same thing, spoke. Don't worry, you don't have that to worry about. But when Kyuubi actually let loose and put to use all the chakra that he had accumulated over many years, this was the result, a might far surpassing the original level of power given to him by his creator, Rakuto Sennin. Unlike before, there was no real limit to how much chakra he could store. Theoretically, with enough time and chakra, he could become invincible. He was no longer just a demonic fox. In the present, Kyuubi was like a god, a demonic fox god. So that's the reason for the title. Clark said. And here we were worried about Trigon. Prepare one final attack. Destroy their planet, Naruto said. What? Gaara spoke out. Never in his life did he think he'd hear something like that from Naruto's mouth. Do you know what you're asking him to do, Naruto? That's genocide. Tsunade half yelled. You really think my other self would kill off a whole race if he didn't think it was the best option? Naruto defended. For the love of God, there's never a good reason to commit genocide, Naruto. Clark groaned. If the signs are really as bad as hell made them out to be, don't you think the universe would be better off without them? Gaara asked. Diana nodded. As much as she valued life, she knew when it was time to get rid of someone. His ruthless words would have shocked his younger self back in the elemental nations. But Naruto was no stranger to the atrocities that this race of degenerates had committed over their millions of years of existence. There was not a single innocent among them. When one wants to cut the weeds, they have to pull them from their roots. Complete annihilation. Kyuubi's booming evil laughter subsided. He had never fully lost himself in his lust for carnage and slaughter. He had not forgotten even for a second that his current power was possible only because of the chakra that Naruto was pouring into him, a chakra that Naruto absorbed from nature, on a planet even more polluted and infected than the Earth. Oh yeah, the sickness stuff. Barry recalled. And you said you can't just expel it back into a polluted world, right? Naruto nodded, concerned for his other self. Yeah. Now I see why Kirama's worried. The amount of nature energy he'd have to take in to power up a planet-destroying attack would be absurd, and when you consider the pollution, it'd leave him severely incapacitated, if not kill him. And he's taking that risk. Gaara said. For what, payback? Kirama snorted. In part. Another reason is his own altruism. He doesn't want it happening to anyone else. Quotation mark. I don't know why you don't like people associating you with it. It's a good quality to possess. Diana said. I wouldn't side with anyone who doesn't have at least a little bit of an altruist in them. It's a real shame that I'm not in your world. Naruto said. Don't hold your breath on that. Barry spoke up from behind him. Are you sure, Naruto? Kyuubi asked worriedly. Just do it. Naruto said grimly. I'm only acting as a conductor, not as the engine. I'm just pouring chakra into you instead of using it myself. The damage this infected natural energy does to me is not as bad as if I was the one to use it and cast jutsus. Despite his words of reassurance, right at that moment, his mask cracked and dispersed into particles of light. His perfect chakra control was starting to slip up. His red hair came into view now that the mask no longer disguised it, and the appearance of his face too. He was horrible to look at. Had Kyurubi been able to see how Naruto looked at that moment, he would have stopped his rampage in a heartbeat. Purple-black blood was flowing from a corner of his mouth. Most of the skin on his face was a mixture of dark violet and black, and he lost the sight in one of his eyes after half of his face had been petrified. It was a clear sign of nature energy poisoning. Oh, that's nasty. Oliver shuddered, with Dinah nodding in agreement. Batman wondered if Poison Ivy suffered from something similar in Gotham. Maybe that was why she was so insistent on cleansing the city, even if it meant destroying the things and people polluting it. Tsunade stared at the screen worryingly. She knew it wasn't the same Naruto, but seeing him in the state he was in, as well as knowing something similar could happen to him, didn't make her feel any better. No wonder you're careful about where you use sage mode, Kakashi commented. If he did not stop drawing on nature's energy very soon, at this rate, his entire body would turn into stone, becoming a statue just like the many other people before him who had lost control of their senjutsu. Kyurubi did not have a wishy-washy nature. He was aware of the dangers Naruto faced the longer he kept using this infected natural energy. So he did not hesitate. Cupping his fists together, he slammed them against the ground with all the strength that his gigantic body was capable of. A huge crack appeared in the ground, splitting the crust of the planet open for dozens of miles. Then, opening his enormous mouth wide open, the largest Gajutama Kyuubi had ever cast slowly took form in front of him. It was even larger than his half-a-mile-long body. At last, he fired it into the huge crack that he had made in the crust of the planet. Despite how violent and powerful the following explosion was, it was not enough to destroy an entire planet by itself, but the chain of reactions that it produced made up for it. The aftershocks and the rest of the berserk chakra resulting from the tailed beast bomb's explosion reached the very core of the planet. Only a few seconds later, terrible earthquakes shook the entire surface of the planet, and volcanoes started showing signs of erupting very soon, from everywhere. It was the end of the world. After a few hours, the planet was going to explode from within. Nobody in the room spoke. As horrifying as it was, the pair's display of power was still a sight to behold, as well as the sight of a planet being destroyed. I can't believe this happens exactly as you predicted it would, Naruto told Gaara. What, with the tectonic plates? He nodded. Yeah, it looks like one got broken. Earthquakes, eruptions and all. I think I'd rather get blown up than this, Barry muttered as he watched the planet come undone. What? Why? Oliver asked. Think about it, Ollie. The people who survived the blast would have to spend the last moments of their lives unable to do anything except wait for the inevitable end via the environment. Imagine surviving an explosion just to suffocate in the resulting fire. Oh. It's like you two get capable of more and more destruction with each passing chapter, Diana noted, much to Naruto's amusement. 90 years is a long time to get powerful, he said. True, it's still amazing though, she said. It's like mass murder runs in the family, Tsunade said under her breath, but it didn't escape Clark and Gaara's notice. What do you mean by that? Clark asked, instinctively alarmed by the thought of Gaara being close to a homicidal man. Tsunade scowled. Of course, super hearing. Naruto's father single-handedly wiped out a battalion of enemy ninja during the war he fought in, and well, Naruto here, we are seeing it, aren't we? Oh. He'd forgotten what came with the lifestyle the ninja led. So the father had a lot of kills, the son committed omnicide. What's the grandson going to do? Dinah joked. Mass omnicide, Barry offered. That's great and all, but don't let this distract you from the fact that Savior Naruto can kill all your enemies for you. Oliver put his hands together. Not this again. Naruto sighed. I mean, you committed omnicide, man. Some people fail at a simple genocide. The archer shrugged. Because they weren't powerful enough, Gaara said. I'm sure Jews would be happy to know they only still exist because the Nazis had a skill issue. Make yourself tiny, Kirama. Quickly, Naruto said with difficulty because the petrification process was advancing further than before and even his mouth was starting to turn to stone. In spite of knowing he'd survive, the people in the room couldn't help but worry for him. The over 1,500 feet tall and over 2,500 feet long demonic fox god decreased in size at a very fast speed until it became no larger than a horse. Kyurubi had realized that Naruto was in a critical condition. He made himself small enough for Naruto to be able to teleport them both, but also big enough for him to carry his wounded friend. In a flash of yellow and red light, the two of them appeared 4,000 miles away, in the exosphere of the planet, aboard their invisible ship. Naruto, you. The fox could not continue speaking. Except for his right eye, all of Naruto's face had turned into stone along with his left hand and leg. He was petrified in a kneeling position, bent over, the position he had had while pouring his chakra into Kyuubi. Diana grimaced. How much nature energy did your other self take in? Too much. Naruto said. Far too much. Naruto weakly raised a still working hand and put it on Kyuubi's chest. His index finger drew invisible lines on his chest like he was writing. Don't worry. I'll be okay. Kyuubi read by imagining what the lines Naruto drew with his finger would be in kanji. Naruto made a weak thumbs-up gesture and then proceeded to write again on the fox's chest. Kolobo, return favor, rat bastard, warp ship. Earth. Naruto once again made a thumbs-up gesture to show that Kyuubi got it right. After that, his only remaining eye closed. He lost consciousness. He's coming back to Earth then. Batman sighed. Don't worry, he's not in the right state to drain your funds anymore. Barry joked. Yet, he's just near death now. Kara frowned. While Naruto was unconscious, on the brink of death, and Kyuubi was fumbling with the computer of the ship to activate the space warp, the rest of the universe was in an uproar. Yet, the entire Scion race got wiped out in one day. Of course people would go wild about it. Hal said. The two of them had no idea about how far-reaching were the consequences of their outrageous display of power and ruthless violence. They were in every discussion of the upper echelons of all the powerful forces of the galaxy. The well-informed and powerful organizations in the entire known universe were shocked because the Scions were one of the oldest races of the universe, almost as old as the Guardians of the Green Lantern Corps who had created them. No self-respecting interstellar power could claim that they had not heard of the Scions and their cruel dominion over the lawless Vega system. However, such an old, powerful, and technologically advanced race had been massacred to the last individual in the span of a day. In the Vega system, the Gordanian Empire's ruling body was in a panic. Their allies and masters, the Scions, possessed far superior technology and means of destruction and/or defense. But they had been eradicated in only one day. Hundreds of thousands of Gordanians evacuated Karna Planet in the following weeks, running for their lives. It doesn't matter where they run, the Thagnarians won't rest till they're all wiped out. Batman said. I'd say it's long overdue, especially with what they've done to the planets they attacked. Kara folded her arms. True that. Naruto nodded. I'm just worried about what's going to happen to my other self. Attention of that level isn't always a good thing. I wouldn't put it past Mongol to try getting his hands on you. Clark said. Mongol? Gaara asked. He rules a moving planet called Warworld and captures people to fight as gladiators on his planet. He had me in his custody for a long while before I got free. Clark explained. Ah! In contrast to the Gordanians, billions of other people in the Vega system were celebrating the day of liberation. The Scions who had taken over the entire system were no more. Countless people came out on the streets and celebrated together, regardless of race or nationality when the news of Scion's massacre came out. On Thanagar, the members of the ruling council of the Thanagarians were having difficulty to contain smiles on their faces. For generations, they had been at war against the Gordanians and, as of late, they were even starting to get pushed back by the Flying Lizard Men. Although the Gordanians had not been destroyed along with the Scions, the Thanagarians were very happy with the outcome. Without the Scions' technology to support them from the back, the Gordanian Empire's defeat was only a matter of time. On Earth, Jon Stewart had a look of disbelief on his face when Salak, the administrator of the Green Lantern Corps, sent him, and the rest of the Green Lanterns too, a shocking report. The Scions of the Vega system have been massacred. An intergalactic mercenary, Uzumaki Naruto, also known as Caterpillar, and his companion, Kyuubi, a demon, have destroyed the Scions planet and the 6 moons that they had colonized. The Guardians have classified the two of them as universal-level threats. All Green Lanterns in possession of more information about these two subjects are to report to OA immediately. On New Genesis and Apocalypse, Highfather and Darkseid, the rulers of the two factions of the New Gods, were both frowning, though because of different reasons. The Vega system was a place that even Darkseid had not attempted to conquer until then because he recognized the threat that the Science technology posed. Darkseid did not like the sudden apparition of such a wild and violent dark horse, one that annihilated an entire race in one day. New Genesis and the Justice League were annoying enough as it was. He did not like the thought of such a dangerous variable popping up in his plans of world domination. Oh shit. Naruto muttered. Of course he had a literal god on his ass now. Join the club. Superman grumbled with Diana, Kara and Jean agreeing. As for Highfather, he went into a deep meditation, trying to make contact with the source. He was worried about such a powerful character being evil. His adopted son, Orion, the most valiant warrior of the gods from New Genesis, was getting ready to leave their world and make contact with the dangerous mercenary and his beast, to ascertain their intentions and thoughts. On the planet Almerac, a beautiful red-haired woman shot up from her throne, her face betraying the shock she was feeling. She was Maxima, the queen of Almerac. Look, Superman. You're ride or die. Oliver snickered. This is who you beat and refused to marry. Naruto gaped at the woman on the screen. What's wrong with you? Forgive me for not wanting to marry someone just because I can beat them. Clark defended himself. If she really wanted a husband on Earth, she should have showed up in the 50s. Hal grinned. Dinah shook her head. Apparently, Steve wasn't wrong about domestic abuse being an important part of America's history. I'm glad I didn't. It's not like you have anything to be afraid of. You could tell your husband you won't cook or clean and he wouldn't do a thing. Dinah said. When Wonder Woman refuses to cook and clean, she beats her husband. Barry joked. Wonder Woman kisses the groom. Batman smirked. Wonder Woman's husband isn't allowed to vote. Dinah joined in. When they can't seem to have a child, Wonder Woman is advised to marry another husband. Kara snickered. Diana rolled her eyes. I've got no problem with anything other than the first and last. Naruto whispered to Kirima, who snorted. Of course you don't. A series of contrasting emotions flashed in her eyes, at first anger, then infatuation, and then anger again. She had met the mercenary and his fox a few years before. Oh yeah, you stole her ship. Clark reminded the blonde. Other me. And don't make it sound so bad, the ship saved you and Kara. Thanks for that, by the way. Kara said. What about me? I gave him the idea to go to Argo. Clark deadpanned. Thanks, Naruto. Kara repeated. Infatuated with how powerful he was, she had tried to kidnap him and make him her husband by force. But not only that, he rejected her, he even stole one of their most advanced stealth-oriented warships before escaping from the planet. Oh, so that's how you got to Almerac. Clark snickered. Apparently so. Naruto sighed. This Maxima seemed like Shizuka, but turned up to the maximum. Is it even possible to get turned on from having your vehicle stolen? Oliver stroked his chin and thought. If Stockholm Syndrome's a thing, it's safe to assume you just haven't seen it happen. Dinah replied. She had not heard anything about him for years, but when she finally heard some news about him again, it was about him annihilating a race as powerful as the Saiyans. Her infatuation levels skyrocketed. Flushed with excitement and desire, and with her previous anger nearly forgotten, she immediately ordered her subordinates to search for more information about his whereabouts. She was definitely going to hunt him down and make him her husband. Dinah teasingly nudged Naruto. It looks like you'll be having another Shizuka on your hands. But crazier. Kakashi smiled. Yamato had told him about Naruto's encounter with the Anato Shikoku Nauchi. It's like every woman who comes after you themselves tries to get you through violence. Tsunade chuckled humorlessly. Maybe he looks like a sub or something. Oliver mused. If you stare at him any harder, I'll assume you're checking him out. Dinah said. Oliver took his eyes away from the blonde. You know I wasn't. I'd much rather be in charge, but hey, if the lady's attractive enough, older or physically stronger than I am, I'm cool with being under. Naruto shrugged. Diana raised an eyebrow. Did he say that with her in mind? Carol hummed. I am technically in my 40s now. The Amazon scowled. Lastly, a yellow power ring took flight from Quard, in the antimatter universe. Its destination was precise, the Earth, in the Sol system, Milky Way galaxy. Target, Kyurubi, the nine-tailed demonic fox god. Of course the Sinestro corpse would come for him. Hal sighed. The fox was now easily one of the most feared beings in the universe after that display of power. Yellow power ring. Naruto asked. It's similar to what I have. Each corp has their own ring, but each color signifies a different emotion. They usually search out and pick whoever fits their requirement, so you can't really choose which one you want. Hal explained. What's green for? Envy. Naruto smiled teasingly. I hate that stereotype, and no, it doesn't mean envy. Green's the color of willpower. Red means anger, blue means hope, violet means love, and so on. Naruto hummed. What about orange if there's one? Greed. He scowled. That's not right. What about bravery or something? Why does it have to be greed? Hal snorted amusedly. Take it up with Larfleeze or something, and bravery's not an emotion. And willpower is. What about yellow? Kakashi asked before a debate could start. It signifies fear. Kirama grinned widely at that, purposely contorting his face to appear as frightful as possible. Naruto rolled his eyes. Of course you'd like that. Don't be too happy. The yellow lantern ring usually programs the minds of the wearers to obey the corpse leader's will. Hal told the fox. I simply will not get programmed. I'm not like the rest of you flesh bags. Sure you aren't. Hal chuckled. Let's keep reading. There's nothing more. The chapter has ended. Jean said. Oh. Everyone promptly got off their seats and went around to talk. Well, that's one hell of an ass-kicking he gave them. Oliver sent Barry a mocking smile that made the speedster roll his eyes. Why is it kicking ass and not punching ass? Kakashi asked. Most acts of violence are done with the hands, aren't they? I've never really thought of it that way before. Barry paused. Well, Oliver started. When you think of it, punching usually means striking with the first, right? Right. The silver-haired man nodded. But when you punch people in the ass, it's weird. Because of all places to punch, why'd you go for the ass? Why were you looking at the ass in the first place? True. Not to mention, another meaning of punching means to put a hole into something like a ticket or paper. When you're punching in that way, you're putting a hole into someone's ass. And that's just weird. But even then, everyone's ass already has a hole. An asshole. And what happens when you try punching a hole into an already existing hole? You go into it. He spread his arms. And then, you're not punching a hole into someone's ass, you're punching into someone's asshole. So when you tell someone you punch ass and they take it another way, they're not going to think this guy stabs people in the ass or this guy's a huge anal fan, they'll think this guy fucks dudes. With that said, when you say you punch ass, either interpretation is just weird, so we just stick to saying we kick ass. Besides, kicking ass sounds more badass. You have a point. Kakashi nodded. Everyone stared at the two men weirdly. I worry about you too sometimes, Oliver. Barry shook his head. Diana clenched her teeth irritably when Gaara wedged herself in between her and Naruto, slinging her arms over their shoulders in the process. Hey, I didn't want to hold up the reading process, so I kept from asking, but who's Shizuka? The Kryptonian asked Naruto, who smiled hesitantly. A member of the Nadeshiko village. Gaara waited for him to say more, but got nothing. What's a Nadeshiko village? Think of Amazons, but in a village rather than an island. He nodded towards Diana. Huh? That's nice, but my real question is what she's got to do with you. Gaara took her arm off Diana to poke him in the chest. The custom in their village is to marry whichever man managed to defeat them in single combat. Shizuka challenged Naruto and lost. Diana helped him out. So you're married now? How come you didn't say so earlier? Gaara deflated. Because I'm not. Naruto shrugged. I managed to talk her out of going through with the marriage thing. You talked her out of following her people's tradition? Gaara asked, her skepticism obvious. That's like convincing Amazons to let men coexist with them. Diana scoffed. Even she'd never let that happen. It helped that they're a lot more lax with a no-men policy, and her heart pretty much still belonged to a recently departed guy. Naruto said. You can get out of the marriage by killing your opponent. What? Gaara blinked. Who'd want to say yes to a random lady challenging them to a fight to the death? You'll be surprised what people say yes to when the lady's attractive enough. Naruto's mind went to Jiraiya and Kakashi. And to be fair, they usually just do it with men who enter the village uninvited. You win, you get married against your will. You lose, you die. Gaara hummed. Doesn't seem all that bad in that situation. Could be a lot worse. Wait, why'd she challenge you in the first place? Naruto scratched his head. Let's just say I inherited more than my teacher's money. Diana rolled her eyes at his attempt at being cryptic. His teacher used him as a replacement for himself after encountering one. No, he promised him a student of his. Naruto corrected her. You were his last and only student at the time. Diana pointed out. She felt a little tempted to bring up the impregnation issue, but decided against it. Gaara probably wouldn't want to believe he refused to sleep with the woman. Naruto conceded to that. He couldn't help but wonder what it'd have been like had an older lady gone after his dad instead. She'd have probably ended up having to face off against his mom. Oh wow! Gaara exclaimed. They are a lot more lax with their rules, but you talking her out of going through with the marriage is crazy. That's Naruto, good with his words. Kakashi joined in cheerfully. Naruto groaned. Couldn't you just stick with Granny? You two have been bonding pretty well since we got here. Kakashi ignored him. Hey, did he ever tell you about Chio? Chio? Is that another old flame? Diana asked teasingly. Even Kakashi couldn't help but gag a little at the thought. Naruto shuddered. Never, ever assume that again. She was old enough to be my great-grandmother. Shit, her own grandson was twice my age. Oh, sorry. It's just that whenever a woman from your world, it's almost always because you've been involved with her to some degree. But he was involved, just not romantically. Kakashi said. See, Naruto here talked Chio into killing herself. What? Hal shouted. Everyone who heard the silver-haired man's words stared at Naruto in shock. I'm sorry, you talked her into suicide. Clark repeated, his mind reeling. Jesus, man. What the hell? Oliver shook his head. That's like a chaotic evil playthrough but with maxed out charisma stats. Barry whispered disbelievingly. Even Batman was shocked by that. While he knew Naruto was no stranger to dealing death, the boy was still a good person and most definitely wasn't the kind to talk someone into suicide. Gaara spoke up in his friend's defense. He didn't talk her into suicide, he convinced her to save my life using a technique that would take hers in exchange. That doesn't sound much better, Gaara. Dinah sighed. To be fair, she was saving the technique to breathe life into a puppet. Compare doing that to sacrificing your life to save the leader of a village. Naruto said loudly. Yet, I think it'd suck if she let me die just because she was saving her energy to Pinocchio someday. Oliver admitted. As everyone muttered their agreement, Kakashi spoke again. But wait, there's more. She ran out of chakra while using it and he lent her his to go through with it. Having trouble killing yourself? Here, let me help. Oliver joked. Is that true? Gaara asked. The majority of the time before his death and reaching Tsunade had been a haze, but he vaguely remembered having Naruto's hands on his belly too. Naruto sputtered. Well, she was complaining about not having enough chakra. Would you want her to die without having even achieved what she was dying for? We understand, Naruto. It's just strange. Tsunade said quietly. That hadn't been included in the report. You need to keep that charisma in check though, we wouldn't want you convincing more people to die. Yet, it ended with Chio thankfully. Naruto's mind went to Nagato. He really had to go back to Ame. Anyways, this has made me realize something. Oliver clapped his hands. When he had everyone's eyes on him, he spread his arms out wide. Savior Naruto is a low-tier god. Low-tier god. Naruto ignored Kirama's wild laughter. How offensive. You told her life is as valuable as a summer ant. Gaara choked on her laughter. I did not. She chose to die, she had no regrets. She spent her time faking senility to pull pranks, regretting her actions with Sasori and resenting my father to the point where she tried to kill me when she first saw me. Kakashi said flatly. She lived a full life, she already had a foot in the grave. Naruto grasped at straws. She served zero purpose? How could you say that to an old lady, Naruto? Dinah clucked her tongue chidingly. She saved Gaara. She served a good purpose. You should kill yourself now. And give somebody else all the oxygen you're breathing in. Period. Oliver mimicked Naruto's voice. Why are you alive? So you can bring puppets to life? Kill yourself. Hey, that's actually a good impression. Clark said. Thanks man, I try. Oliver smiled. I hate you all. Seriously, I do. Naruto sighed. I didn't think you were capable of hate. Hal said. You're always so polite. Hell, I'd say it's in your blood. That's kind of racist, man. Barry said. In his soul. That's creepy. Naruto grimaced. In his eyes? They are the windows to the soul. Hal nodded to himself. That's gay. Dinah snorted. Point is, he's nice. Like pretty much every Japanese person I've met. Honestly, I even considered relocating to Japan once back when I was a teenager just because of that. Hal said. You and a lot of other people. Oliver said. Cyborg read too many doujins and thought he'd have better luck with ladies if he went to Japan. I had to clip his wings, man. Why would you do that? Superman frowned. It wasn't like Oliver to stop someone from trying to pick up girls. Because he's not genetically qualified to be found appealing, and I've been telling him that, like, bro, you're just not the coon they want over there," Oliver said. Everyone stared at the man weirdly for the last part. Dinah let out a choked laugh, but didn't say anything. "Was that supposed to be a joke?" Barry asked. Oliver shook his head disappointedly. "Let's just move on." Eventually, they ran out of topics to discuss and took their seats to prepare for the next chapter. The book flew into Oliver's hands, and with an annoyed groan, he began to read. Origins. Yes, a burrito with extra cheese. Yes, the top floor. The name is Diana Prince. Placing her smartphone on the coffee table in her spatio. "Wait, I just got the coon thing." Kara shot up. "You are a terrible person, Oliver." Naruto squinted confusedly. "How did using a suffix make someone a terrible person?" Oliver grinned. "I'm sorry, I've been holding that in for months now." "I'm telling Cyborg you said that," Clark said. "You snitch." Placing her smartphone on the coffee table in her spacious living room, Wonder Woman focused on drying off her wet hair with a head towel. She had just come out of the shower, proof of it also being that there was only a white towel wrapped around her torso. I think this is the brightest start to any of the chapters we've read so far." Kakashi giggled perversely as he admired the woman's body through the towel. "You're not getting any points in her book with that attitude, Hatake." Tsunade rolled her eyes when the silver-haired man smiled at her uncaringly. "None whatsoever." Barry muttered. He hadn't made a good impression on Diana either with his flirting. "To be fair, she didn't get half the stuff you were saying at the time. The only thing she got was that you were trying to get in her pants." Hal comforted him. "I wasn't trying to do so either." Barry lamented. It'd have been a welcome bonus, but he'd really just found her interesting at the time. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang and she left her head towel on the backrest of the sofa as she sat up and went to open the door. "Good evening, ma'am. Here's your..." The delivery boy's words died in his throat 2 seconds after that door opened. "Good evening. Is there a problem?" Wonder Woman asked, completely oblivious. "Nothing much, you just opened the door for him while clad in only a towel." Dinah grinned. "You wouldn't happen to be trying something, would you?" Diana flushed. "Of course not. My other self only made a mistake." "And no," he said, his face quickly becoming as red as an apple. Long black hair, wet, barely out of the shower, striking blue eyes, defined cheekbones, full lips, and a body even a model would be envious of. A body wrapped in only a white towel that strained to contain her voluptuous breasts and left her soft shoulders and strong yet still feminine thighs and legs bare. "Goddamn." Oliver whistled amazedly. He made sure to burn the image into his mind. It would be the closest he'd ever get to seeing Diana naked. "I actually agree with you on this one." Dinah nodded. "Only thing that can make this better is if the towel falls off." Kara rubbed her hands together. "Kara." Clark snapped, having looked away from the screen. He still had a little attraction to Diana, but he felt like he was doing Lois wrong by looking. "Didn't know you swung that way, Kara." Hal muttered. "I just like to admire a good sight, much like you're doing." Kara retorted, feeling a bit jealous of the Amazon. She got attention so easily without even trying. "You probably get this a lot, but you're really beautiful, you know. Like, a little too beautiful to be real." Naruto whispered to an embarrassed-looking Diana. It was obvious he was still stuck on her image on the screen. "You'll be surprised by how little I actually do." "Thank you." Diana smiled. A part of her felt proud to be able to leave him in his current state. In truth, the costume she wore on a daily basis in public while fighting crime did not cover much more than the bath towel, but there was a stark difference in the atmosphere surrounding her at that time and in the present. Till the very end of the transaction, the delivery boy fumbled very flusteredly. He almost dropped the package with food when he handed it to her and, after getting her money, he bolted away, forgetting to give her the change. But he turned around after a few seconds, his face even redder than before, boiling, upon realizing his mistake. "Wait, my change!" Diana yelled. "He didn't give me my change." "You actually take back your change from delivery people?" Oliver asked surprisedly. "What did she need it for?" She nodded. The archer shook his head. "That's a level of tight-fistedness you expect from Batman. Remember the burger place where he paid the waiter in coins just so he wouldn't leave any change?" Dinah said. "Oh yeah." Barry laughed. He'd never seen anyone give a suited-up Batman the stink eye before then. "I always tip delivery men though," Batman said. "Because Robin forces you to?" Clark asked. The caped crusader reluctantly nodded. Hal scoffed. If I had to drive through Gotham to drop food off at your doorstep and you don't tip me, next time, I'll put the air conditioners on full blast and place your box in front of them. That's some next level pettiness. Gaara chuckled. Wonder Woman giggled softly. It's alright, you can keep the change. Thank you and have a nice evening, she said with a smile and waved in goodbye. She may have been oblivious in the first few seconds, but Wonder Woman was not stupid. She realized the reason for the boy's embarrassment. After starting to live as Diana Prince among regular people, she began to understand how big was the effect of her physical appearance on most men. What I don't get is why almost everyone acts like that when I'm Diana Prince, but nobody shows any reaction in front of Wonder Woman. Maybe because they're afraid of you, Gaara offered. Intimidated is a better term, Jean said. It speaks. Barry and Oliver yelled in unison. The Martian gave them a blank stare, but they were familiar enough with him to know he was annoyed. No offense, Dee, but you're kind of unapproachable when you're on duty, Dinah said. What? Do I come off as unfriendly? Diana frowned. No. You're just kind of larger than life, you know. People just admire you from a distance because the thought of even talking with you is kind of overwhelming, she explained. Yet, same with Clark and Bats here. Oliver pointed at the two men. But then again, most people don't see Batman unless it's night, so they're more terrified than anything else. Let's be honest, it's pretty much that way with all of you, Gaara said. And it's not even a fan thing. The first time me and Batgirl met, she stuttered a lot around me too. I wish it was like that with me, Naruto grumbled. The woes of overfamiliarity among fans. Kakashi chuckled. I told you to stop saying you're one of them. Scenes like the previous one when men became starstruck were not really that common, hence her amusement, but it was a fact that dozens of men had tried to hit on Diana Prince during the past few months since she adopted the civilian identity, yet hardly anyone seemed to like Wonder Woman as a woman. Maybe it's because Wonder Woman looks like an untouchable being, powerful and dangerous, while Diana Prince is the normal but attractive and rich human girl? Yet that's exactly it. Barry snapped his fingers. The world's greatest playboy would never think of trying to chat up Wonder Woman. Kakashi shrugged. An excessively rich lady is a different type. Are you saying I'm easy? Diana asked, a little offended. No, rich girls are usually the easiest to score so long as you've got an and they're not the traditional type, especially the ones who are looking for as much adventure in their lives as they can get. Kakashi explained. Are you talking from experience? Tsunade smirked. No offense, but you don't seem like you get laid off, and especially since your head's in that smut book most of the time. I did a few Hyuga back in the day and got out of marrying any of them, take it from me. Kakashi grinned. Hyuga? Diana asked Naruto, who stared at his teacher in shock. Rich clan, very traditional. I'll explain later. What Wonder Woman was completely unaware of was that her hero persona was way more popular with men, and not only, than her civilian identity. It was just that nobody would dare to express their honest thoughts in front of someone who could bend steel with her bare hand and throw cars around like they were pebbles. I wanna fuck you. You already know, Hal whistled the tune. Of course he'd never say those lyrics out loud. The ones who understood snickered, but nobody called him out on it. If she had browsed the internet for even as little as 2 minutes, typing Wonder Woman in the search engine, she would have seen how different the situation was. But she had never done that. She did not know about the hundreds of blogs dedicated to worshipping Wonder Woman or about the existence of websites like Rule 34. They worship me. Diana's eyes widened. Not in the way you're thinking, Dee. Oliver started slowly. He'd seen some of those blogs himself, and many of them left him feeling the need to touch grass. Oh, Wonder Woman's so perfect. I'd drag my tits across broken glass just to smell the spot she stood on. You know, the typical stuff. Gaara shrugged. The ninjas looked at each other strangely. Diana's face contorted in horror. Why would they do that just to smell dirt? They hardly mean it literally, it's just a way of showing how attracted to you they are. Gaara chuckled. Yet, I've heard worse things. Someone said they'd suck a tapeworm out of Dinah's digestive tract like a noodle. Oliver pointed at Dinah, who shuddered. Someone told me he'd let me castrate him and use his severed penis as a dildo. Gaara said. Wild stuff. Discord's such a weird place. Wait, what's Rule 34? Naruto asked. The superheroes froze. Well, it's more of an internet rule than anything. Oliver started. The internet has rules? Diana asked. Not officially. Barry said. It's kind of a bunch of joke rules that kind of justify the internet for what it is today. What's Rule 34 then? Kakashi asked. The two men sputtered. I mean, it's not like we keep them in our heads. It's hard to remember. Gaara sighed as she watched them dance around the topic. Fine, she'd do it herself. If it exists, there's porn of it. Diana frowned in thought before realization hit her. So there's pornographic content of me. Yep. And me. And Dinah. Pretty much all of us have it, even the guys. Gaara nodded. She'd been disgusted when she first saw a drawn picture of herself getting plowed, but she'd learned to ignore them. How's that even possible? Does someone watch me bathe? The mortified Amazon asked, feeling violated by the thought. No, it's usually just drawings, cosplays and deepfakes. No nudes. Oliver sighed. Along with fan-made stories about us being together. You'll be surprised how many think we're swingers. And / lovers. Gaara pointed out. I've seen more stories involving Clark plowing Batman than my mental health allows me to take. I'm sorry, what? Clark's head shot up. Yet, you and Batman are the most popular pairing among your fans, with Flash and Batman being a close second. Surprise. She said. Batman felt the urge to vomit. He and Superman were brothers and all but bled. What about their public interactions made people think they even made a couple? Wait, what? Barry looked horrified. Why would people do that? I'm married for Pete's sake. Barry Allen's married. The Flash, however, is very single. At least to people's knowledge. She winked. Wow, what a wonderful place Earth is turning out to be. Naruto's smile was fake as plastic. They make porn of their own heroes. How do we tell him? Kakashi asked an amused Tsunade. She shook her head. We don't. With these idle thoughts, Wonder Woman came back to the living room and, after plopping herself down on the sofa, she grabbed the remote and turned on the TV. Then, she opened the paper bag and grabbed the burrito from it. She took a huge, very unladylike bite from her burrito and an expression of bliss appeared on her face. Someone's feeling peckish. Gaara nudged Diana, who rolled her eyes. Sorry for not wanting to eat everything with a fork and a knife. The Amazon retorted. In Themyscira, table etiquette was a non-existent concept. Nobody cared about the manner in which you put food in your mouth. What looked like an enormous ship of alien invaders appeared above Jump City. Wonder Woman put her burrito down for a moment with a dissatisfied expression and changed the channel. Everyone is asking the same question, who is the newly emerged hero? Hero. Oliver snickered. They don't know about it. They really don't. Barry agreed. The princess' expression darkened and she changed the channel once more. The Justice League has yet to release a statement in regards to the previous incident, so we don't know what exactly had transpired, the host of the show said, but one of his partners interrupted him. Nonsense. It's as clear as day that he's a hero. Everyone saw and heard that hologram of the spaceship's commander. Those alien freaks would have destroyed the entire city if they hadn't found their allegedly dangerous prisoner. This new hero saved millions of people that night in Jump City, and with no collateral damage at that. If that ain't what being a hero means, then I don't know what is. If someone who doesn't cause property damage becomes an instant hero in their eyes, I hate to see how exactly you guys fight. Kakashi eyed the heroes who shifted in their seats. It's not like it's our fault nobody wants to take the fight to somewhere empty. Clark said defensively. Like a Morbius theater. Oliver and Barry high-fived. Her face now scrunched up in annoyance. Wonder Woman changed the channel again. It was a music channel this time. A large group of women dressed in a bikini and other types of promiscuous outfits were dancing on the beach while two men were singing. Oliver stopped himself in time. No, keep going. Dinah grinned. I want to hear the whole verse. I can't remember it anymore. I haven't listened to Snoop Dogg in years. The Archer lied. Bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks. Bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks. Lick on these nuts and suck the dick. 1. Oh. Naruto raised an eyebrow. That's a vulgar way of rapping. Sadly, that's mainstream rap now. Hal sighed. It's all about sex, drug abuse and bragging about wealth. Not to mention gang violence. Gaara smiled. I'm begging Yaoi. Link me in the field, you pussy. Oliver laughed. Naruto looked at Diana, who shrugged. She was just as lost. Suddenly, the sound of a crash was heard when the remote control slammed into the large flat screen of the TV, cracking it beyond recognition. A small vein was pulsating on Wonder Woman's temple. Men. All men are the same. She said in anger. I take offense to that. We're not all the same. Kakashi huffed. She only said it out of anger. Sorry. Diana smiled apologetically. Don't listen to him, Diana. He's the last person to be saying that. Tsunade said. I'm not wrong though, am I? Kakashi asked. You read porn in public. Which most men don't do. And look at that, I'm a man too. Doesn't that mean I'm different? He smirked, content with his logic. Tsunade rubbed her forehead with a heavy sign. Just keep going. Please? But she closed her eyes and breathed out in an attempt to regain her composure. No, there are good people among men too. She conceded in her mind once she calmed herself down a little. It had been almost 1 year since she had come to the man's world, and she had seen in her fellow members of the Justice League that men were not all that bad. At least not all were as bad as she had been taught to believe. There were also brave, honest, noble and self-sacrificing characters among them. But they are a minority. The average men out there. She let out a long sigh and massaged her temples with her hands. Since the Justice League's clash against the alien mercenary in Jump City and the Gordanian ships following destruction, the Earth had been thrown into an uproar. Her level of stress and her worries were off the charts. Videos of the incident in Jump City spread on the internet like a wildfire. The videos did not contain scenes of Naruto's clash against the Justice League because all the civilians evacuated the area after Coriander went on a rampage, but they all contained the scene of a man glowing in yellow and red light, almost like an angel, annihilating the enormous half-a-mile-long alien spaceship. Savior Naruto has been seen by mortal eyes. Oliver cried out. Sacrilege. Oh, give it a rest, Oliver. Barry rolled his eyes. In the general population's eyes, he was a newly emerged hero. They had no idea that he had fought against the Justice League at first. That said, the entire Justice League was very rattled by the incident. Batman hid in his Batcave and has not spoken to anyone ever since. John Stewart was summoned to Green Lantern Corps HQ in an urgent fashion, and Wonder Woman herself just stayed at home all day, in her apartment, eating junk food and hiding from the crazed reporters. You shouldn't eat so much junk food, Dee. Superman chided the woman gently. I'd like to have myself a burger too, but they have negative effects on the body as time goes on. Unless you're Barry. Hal pointed at said man, who shrugged. He's probably the only one who benefits from eating unhealthy food. Yes sir. Barry smiled proudly. Now if only I could put on more muscle. That's some good advice, Clark. It's a shame I won't be taking it. Diana said. She couldn't imagine a life without soda, chocolate, hot dogs and ice cream. Providence said that I tried. Clark sighed. The rest of the Justice League did the same too, but after seeing the huge disparity of power between them and the alien, Wonder Woman, in particular, was almost starting to question her abilities. Of what use had it been that she had trained for thousands of years as an Amazon when someone could just obliterate everything in their path with a snap of their fingers? You can still snap lots of people like a twig, Diana. Naruto comforted her. There just also happens to be lots of people capable of snapping you like a twig. There's always a bigger fish. I've come to terms with that. It's just annoying to see people who make all your work look useless. Diana said. You're telling me. I nearly lost the use of my hand while inventing a technique only for some guy to absorb it with his hands. He grumbled. That sounds disheartening. Kara spoke. But she was stopped from continuing that line of thought when the doorbell rang again. Who could it be at this hour? It was already past 10 p.m., it was night. Furthermore, she had no real friends or social life outside the Justice League, and if they wanted to contact her, Martian Manhunter would have done it through their comms or even telepathy. There was no need to come all the way to her apartment. But when she looked through the door's peephole, a startled cry came out of her mouth. Mother! Your mom left Amazon Island to come visit you? Clark asked, honestly surprised. Hippolyta hadn't been the most unpleasant of the bunch he'd met on Themyscira, but she also gave off the impression of someone who'd split her wrists before visiting Man's World. She'd never do that unless the situation called for it. Diana frowned. What matter could make her mother leave the island rather than call for her instead? Whatever it is, it seems discretion is of the highest value here, considering she personally came to you rather than summon you. Kakashi said. We'll find out as it goes. Keep reading, Ollie. Barry gestured towards the archer, who complied. Long blonde hair, blue eyes and wearing a white robe and a golden tiara on her head, it was none other than Hippolyta, the Queen of the Amazons and Wonder Woman's mother. Kara whistled. Don't take this the wrong way, Diana, but your mom is fine. Clark sighed unhappily. How had Kara become the way she was now? I wonder why you didn't get her hair though. Does your dad have black hair or something? Naruto asked. Diana shook her head. No, all Amazons are made from clay. Naruto looked at her skeptically. You're kidding, right? If you have a mom, you most definitely have a dad. I think it's best not to bring science into mysticism, Naruto. Gaara said. There's a likelihood that she's just simplifying the actual process. Yet, don't be like Barry's idiot apprentice. Oliver snickered. Oh come on, man. Again? Barry scowled. He called Satoru smoke and mirrors. He's lucky he didn't say that to Dr. Fate. Dr. Fate? Tsunade asked. A man who works with the Lord of Order as a vigilante. Batman said simply. Sounds like someone Neji would have liked. Naruto muttered. We haven't seen each other in so long. Don't I get a hug from my daughter? Hippolyta said. Wonder Woman embraced her mother tightly and she took her hands in hers after she broke the hug. What brings you here? Does a mother need a reason to visit her child? Hippolyta asked teasingly. You've never visited me before and I. Wonder Woman trailed off. For a little while, mother and daughter became silent. Due to their laws, as the queen of the Amazons, Hippolyta had to exile her own daughter even despite the fact that she had broken those laws for the sake of saving their lives. Because of that, Wonder Woman could not visit her mother and her fellow Amazon sisters even if she wanted. Awkward, Kara sing-songed. Yesterday night, while I was in meditation, I sensed an incredible magic power. It was like the power of a god. I've come to the man's world because I was worried about you. We met a very powerful foe. The strongest we've ever faced. He defeated the entire Justice League effortlessly. We could not do anything against him. If he had been evil, I don't know how many of us would have been alive now. At least one. Oliver raised a finger. Yet, at least one of you would still be alive. Kakashi nodded. Hearing Diana's words, Hippolyta took her in her arms and embraced her again. My little stars and sun. She said lovingly. Ah, little Sunday. Barry cooed. Diana glared at him with reddened cheeks. Say that again and there won't be a third time. She looked around the room. That goes for all of you. This never leaves this room, you understand. Her rage shines bright and indiscriminate, like the sun. Kara said. Diana sighed. Naruto leaned into her and whispered. I think it's cute. Her subsiding embarrassment resurfaced again. Mother. Diana also said and hugged her back. They were warriors, born for battle and they were both several thousand years old, but when it was just the two of them, Diana and Hippolyta were not Wonder Woman and the Queen of the Amazons but just a daughter and a mother that loved each other dearly. It's time I told you the truth, something I've hidden from you since forever, Hippolyta said, and then she took out a pendant from her neck. An incantation spoken in an ancient Greek language came out of her mouth and the pendant started glowing with dark blue light, coating the entire living room with its color. This is a very powerful spell, one that was cast upon this medallion by your father himself. For a short while, no one will be able to see or hear what is happening in this room. My father. Diana frowned. Her mother had always avoided the topic of her other parent till she eventually gave up and stopped trying to ask. I feel like we shouldn't be seeing this. Naruto said. It had to be a heavy secret if Diana's mom didn't even want to risk someone eavesdropping on the conversation. We've been reading everyone's thoughts as well as their actions and words. I think it's clear at this point whatever brought us here doesn't care much about privacy. Kara said. It felt wrong to become privy to a secret in such a manner, but what else could they do? My father. Diana asked in a strange voice. What do you mean? You said you sculpted me from clay and the gods of Olympus themselves blessed me with life and their powers. Oh, the gods did bless you with their powers after you were born. But they did not give you life. I gave you life, together with your father. Wonder Woman was at a loss, unable to find her words. She was almost 3,000 years old. For 3 millennia, she believed that she had been made from clay. That was also why her devotion to the gods was so intense. Because she believed that everything she was because of the gods. But now, her mother suddenly told her that had been a lie from the beginning. Why did you lie to me? All this time, Diana said in agitation. I did it to protect you. To protect you from those that would have wanted to kill you if they had known about your true origins. Who would have wanted to kill me? Who would have even been able to? The Amazons are under the protection of the gods. Diana said. Gods only care about you when it benefits them, Diana. Naruto smiled bitterly, remembering Kaguya. Gentle in the beginning, but upon seeing that no one was buying what she was selling, she turned cruel. It's something I've come to learn myself too, Naruto. Diana sighed. Faust being able to enter Themyscira and turn her sisters to stone had made her lose a great portion of her faith in the gods. You and I both saw how much protection the gods gave us when Faust had turned everyone to stone. The gods, they do not care about the Amazons that way. We are expendable. Just tools that they can use as they see fit. If we broke, they would just create another set of tools to replace us. In front of the gods, mortals mean nothing. Yet, no shit. You tend not to value anyone when all you can just slap dirt around and make another one just like them. Oliver said before grunting in pain as Dinah elbowed him in the side. Oliver, that's insensitive. Clark reprimanded the archer. That's the basis of expendability though. Kakashi shrugged. I don't get it, why would they create you to serve them but still give you free will? Barry asked. That's true. What's the point of freedom at all of choice when indoctrination and a lack of other options exist in the same scenario? Tsunade scoffed. They lived in an island isolated from the rest of the world, raised all their children to worship the gods wholeheartedly and painted man's world as evil. It wouldn't matter one bit even if anyone somehow chose not to serve gods. Diana shook her head, not wanting to think of any of it. I don't know, let's just keep going. Mother. Wonder Woman shouted, scandalized. What Hippolyta had just said could very well be considered as blasphemy against the gods. It was the first time that Wonder Woman had ever seen her mother speak like that about their gods and wearing that expression of bitterness in her face. You've ever wondered why the Amazons were punished to guard the gates of Tartarus for eternity? Hippolyta asked. Was it not because you aided Hades and the Titans in their battle against the gods of Olympus? Diana replied. Why would they go against their own creators though? Naruto asked. She never told me, at least not the truth. Diana sighed, realizing even that had been a lie already. How many other things was her mother hiding from her? Maybe she just didn't tell you the whole truth. Kara theorized. Blatant lies have a way of falling apart quickly. But why would Hades, Zeus' brother, try to plot against him by siding with the Titans? And why would we, the Amazons, support Hades in his rebellion? Do you really think I was so blindly in love with Hades that I just went along with whatever he wanted without questioning the fate of my people? Hippolyta continued to ask. Seeing her daughter falling silent, she continued. One day, Hades came home while I was bathing and he joined me in. Weird way to talk about the beginning of a war, but okay. Kakashi shrugged. Mother. Diana cried out, her cheeks instantly turning rosy in embarrassment. She did not want to hear any details about her mother's sex life. But Hippolyta continued unbothered by her daughter's protests. Like any other couple, we started to make love. But I noticed that the way he was kissing me was different from before. Hades was a gentle lover, very caring and conscious of my needs. But that day, he was acting strangely. Rougher, more dominant, more selfish. I did not like it. Wait. Batman's eyes widened. His many bouts against Maxi Zeus had made him perform an extensive study of Greek mythology to understand the man's line of thinking. Consequently, he'd done enough research on the gods' antics to have a feeling of who Hippolyta was talking about. However, by the time I realized that something was terribly wrong, it was too late. He had already spilt his seed inside of me. Him being such a quick shot and then teleporting away immediately after that further cemented my suspicions that man had not been Hades. It had been someone else. Oh no, Diana whispered as realization set in. Don't tell me. Diana muttered with her hands covering her mouth in disbelief. It was not hard for her to guess what had actually happened. It had been Zeus all along. You know very well the history and how many women he had raped before. In my case, he had not dared to do it openly. He had disguised himself as Hades, who was my lover at that time. Naturally, I did not hide what happened from Hades. You can imagine his and my rage at Zeus. But we could not do anything against him. He is the king of gods for a reason. No one could ever defeat him, except for goddess Athena maybe, one day. Jesus. Kara trailed off, feeling disgusted. First Starfire, now Diana's mother. Tsunade shuddered. To rape someone we disguised as the person's lover was wrong on so many levels. It wasn't just vile, it also smeared the way the victim saw the person. She looked at Diana, who stared at the screen in horror. She couldn't start to imagine how she felt at the moment, finding out she was the product of a deceptive god's lust. Of course he'd do that. Diana said bitterly. He raped two of his own sisters, why not his brother's lover too? Naruto rubbed her hand comfortingly and blinked when she wrapped it around his. He had no idea what to say to her, so he remained silent. If the very king of the gods that made the Amazons was a serial rapist, he didn't even want to think of what the others would be like. And that's the king of the gods you worship? Gaara asked disgustedly. They probably don't suffer such at their hands considering Zeus had to disguise himself. Batman said. The mortals who don't have that protection are another story. Coincidentally, around that time, the Titans waged war against Olympus. Hades jumped at the chance to get his revenge against Zeus. Though I hated Zeus too for what he did to me, I was reluctant to join him. As the leader of my people, I did not want the Amazons to be embroiled in a war of the gods. But he guilt-tripped me into accepting it, accusing me of colluding with Zeus behind his back. Zeus forcing himself on me that day, it had changed him. He became more taciturn, quick to anger, always ready to explode. Hades became very different from the man I had once fallen in love with. Being cuckolded by your younger brother changes a person. Especially when that brother refuses to be held accountable. Kakashi said. He couldn't say he blamed Hades. As for the rest, it is as you know it. The Titans lost the war and Hades was exiled to Tartarus while the Amazons were punished to guard its gates for eternity for having sided with him. A poignant silence followed. I assume Hera would have wanted to kill me if she had known that Zeus cheated on her again. Diana asked. One rapes, the other punishes the victim. Hal scoffed. Diana shook her head in disbelief. No, she wouldn't. We're all protected by Lady Hera, she's our patron goddess. I'm sure she could choose who she wants to protect, and if she is your patron, it wouldn't take her much to rally the others against you. Naruto said. And from your own question, it's safe to say this isn't the first time she's killing your dad's kids. Yes, Hippolyta answered. But if Zeus has one quality, that is that he cares about his children. Together with great Athena, they made a plan. They gave me an enchanted necklace that hid my pregnancy, and they also told me to sculpt a baby out of clay. When it was time for you to be born, they pretended to give life to that form of clay. Clever. Kakashi commented. Lady Athena is the goddess of wisdom. Diana said as if that explained it all. I see. At least he doesn't leave his kids out in the wild. Oliver said. Knowing that, as the daughter of Zeus, your strength would far exceed that of your fellow Amazons, great Athena sealed your powers. To remove any possibility of Hera becoming suspicious even of your sealed strength, Goddess Athena organized a birthday party for the newborn you, a party where she invited the rest of the gods to bless you. Goddess Athena blessed you with her wisdom. Goddess Demeter blessed you with her strength. Goddess Aphrodite blessed you with her beauty. God Hermes blessed you with his ability of flight and speed. Goddess Artemis blessed you to have unity with nature and wild beasts and affinity to fire. Goddess Hestia blessed you with the power to discern the truth. That's pretty much all the Olympians. Dinah stared at Diana with surprise. You've been holding out on us. I wouldn't say she's been holding out considering we've seen all of the blessings on her. Naruto said. Especially the beauty? Kirima asked from within the seal. You're awake now? He felt the tailed beast roll his eyes. Don't dodge my question. It's odd that you haven't tried making a move on her. What? Are you afraid? No, the time just isn't right yet. The tailed beast snorted. Of course, not right. Keep telling yourself that. And now, the truth shall set you free. You are Diana, the princess of the Amazons, the daughter of Queen Hippolyta and the king of gods, Zeus. The sound of chains being snapped was heard, and an aura of power and nobility burst out from Wonder Woman's body. Had it not been for the powerful spell coming off from the medallion that Zeus had enchanted, just that release of aura would have blasted the top floor of the building to dust. Everyone jumped at the outburst of power. What the hell? Barry cried. Even Diana looked shocked. How much had the medallion suppressed her power? Even while dampened, it's still this much. Kakashi shook his head. Had the medallion not been there, she'd have blown the room up. Naruto just thought she looked beautiful. The spell will not hold on for too long, Diana. Hippolyta said urgently. Where are your bracelets? Put them on immediately. Though extremely bewildered by her mother's words and the massive changes she could feel taking place in her body, Diana automatically listened to her mother's words and tried to run to her bedroom where she had left her uniform. Wait, don't move away from this spell's range. Just tell me where they are and I'll get them for you. Not long after that, Hippolyta returned with the bracelets of submission and gave them to her daughter. After she put them around her wrists, Hippolyta said, unless it's a matter of life and death like it was 2 days ago, never take these off. They will continue to suppress and hide your true nature and powers as long as you wear them. Never tell your identity to anyone, unless you don't have a choice. The moment you take them off, the gods will take notice of you and Hera will learn of your identity as well. An angry and jealous Hera is no less dangerous than her enraged husband. Of course, even getting my powers freed would be a double-edged sword. Diana sighed. One never got an absolute win when dealing with gods. Looking at Diana, who was still silent and had a lost look in her eyes, Hippolyta took her once again in her arms and hugged her to her chest. I'm sorry I had to hide this from you for so long. If I hadn't been afraid I could lose you, I would have never told you the truth. I never cared about how powerful you could be while you were at my side. All I ever wanted was for you to be happy. To be safe and to feel loved. Diana could feel her mother's tears wetting the crook of her neck. She had never seen Hippolyta cry, she had never seen her as vulnerable as that before. Hippolyta broke the hug and she raised her hands to cup her daughter's cheeks, making it so their blue eyes locked on each other. Even though Zeus forced himself on me, I never regretted giving you birth, Diana. I swore this on the river Styx. You are my little stars and sun. You are the joy of my life, my beloved daughter. Never think otherwise. Diana closed her eyes to keep her tears from escaping. She wanted to leave here now. To go back to Themyscira and hug her mother and never leave her arms, but to return to Themyscira would mean death, and remembering that only hurt her even more. Naruto and Kakashi shared a look. Neither of them had grown up with the mother, and while the latter had met it had only been for a few minutes. Not nearly enough time to realize the value of one in his life. They couldn't help but Diana a little, if only because she got to experience a mother's love. Hearing her mother's pleading and love-filled voice and seeing her tears made Diana's eyes start swimming in tears too. She leaned into her mother's touch and hugged her tightly once more. Though her heart had been shaken by these revelations, the love and respect she had for her mother only increased after learning the truth. That night, Hippolyta did not return to the island of paradise. That night, Wonder Woman, a 3,000-year-old woman, a valiant and tough warrior, slept like a vulnerable little girl, curled up in her mother's embrace. In contrast, Hippolyta stayed awake for a long time, watching her daughter sleep. A gentle expression was on her face as she softly caressed Diana's head. Oliver closed the book. The chapter's over. The others let out relieved sighs as they got up and went around. None of them had been comfortable with watching what was supposed to be a private moment with Diana and her mother. Naruto sighed heavily and made to get up, but stopped when he felt Diana's grip tighten. Getting the message, he settled back on his seat and shuffled closer to her. He stiffened a little when she leaned against him slightly, but stayed silent. The two spent the next few minutes in that position before he felt her tremble a little. She was crying. Not loudly, but he'd done what she was doing enough times to easily tell that she was trying to hide it. He absently rubbed her hand with his thumb. There wasn't anything to say, nor was there the desire to speak. He was content with just being there for her.